Joining us tonight is Jake Rattlesnake.
I like to go by Lord Rattlesnake or Lord Jake, most base chat of all the lands.
You don't have an argument. Present your paper or shut up.
Everyone's view is definitely inherently biased. So this is when debate becomes very interesting. I can hear what you're saying, but then I can see that you're dressed as a cat.
I'm a dog.
You said you like to go play fetch.
Wolf, yes.
So how does that tie into your relationship? Like, what are you looking for if you're a dog?
Yeah, I think that Don Jr. will be president one day. If I was a gambling man, I'd put money on that.
You are not a gambling man.
He's got...
Man, I really appreciate it, dude. Nice to see you. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? How are we on this fine day? My chair's a little bit high. Are we all ready for what's about to go down, guys? Are we ready for the rematch? Me and my best bud, first Amender. Oh, I woke up with a pep in my step this morning, ladies and gentlemen. I woke up with a real pep in my step this morning, knowing that I was going to be speaking to my old arch nemesis, aka best bud, but old arch nemesis, first Amender. Who's ready for the rematch, guys? Who is ready for the rematch? Appreciate you guys all being here today. I'm going to be jumping in to this live stream soon, and I'm going to have it streaming here. And then after it, I'm going to come back and speak to the chat, and we can review the happenings. We can review what's just happened. So any super chats that you guys would like to leave, I'm going to be reading out after. So don't be shy, don't be shy. Got my Portugal, I got a new Portuguese soccer shirt. What do you guys think about it? Hey? Pretty cool. Pretty damn cool. All right. This thing isn't live yet. I think this will be live in a few minutes. Who have we got with us, guys? Couple of familiar names in there. What do you think he's going to say, guys? The debate is about should we affirm trans identities? Should we affirm trans identities? What do you think he's going to say, guys? What do you think are going to be some of the arguments from First Amender? And will he finally affirm my lordship? Will he finally affirm my lordship and call me my lord? Because that is the idea, is that I want him to call me my lord. And if he doesn't call me my lord, then that would make him a hypocrite. A totally hypocritical individual. Now, is he going to come on and bite the bullet and just affirm my lordship? Or is he going to fight me on this once again? I don't know, guys. I don't know. If I were him, if I were him, I think the best thing he could do in the debate is just to say, okay, yep, you're a lord, and then just affirm my lordship. But even if he does that, then we've got some more tricks up our sleeve. So it's never to worry, guys. Never to worry. What happened with Iran? Something just happened with Iran. Hold on, let me just look at the news real quick. Long campaign. Israel launches fresh strikes. I don't know. I just woke up anyway. Anyway, this is not a debate about geopolitics. This is a debate about... It's a debate essentially about whether or not I'm a lord. Anyways, I've got to try and launch this meeting here, guys. Here we go. I'm just jumping into it now. 168. 4 minutes until kickoff, guys. I just need to set up all my settings and stuff, and then we'll get into it. 1 second. Microphone. Testing, testing, testing. Yep. All right. Bit grainy over there. Bit grainy over there. Hopefully it's not like that during. Thanks, Dill, for the $2. Appreciate that. Let's see when this thing goes live, eh? I can see the Zoom, but it is a little bit glitchy. Hopefully it's not like that the whole time, because that would be a little bit annoying. I can't hear anything they're saying. This is not a review, guys, for you asking. This is a live debate. No, I'm going to screen share. Yes. Yes. And test. Why can't I hear anything they're saying? Don't know if they can hear me. Something seems to be muted. Anyways, guys, this is going to go live soon. I'm going to kick myself out of here, and I will see you all for a check-in and all of that good stuff after the So we're just in the back room waiting, guys. Waiting for it to start. Don't really know why they're waiting so long. But we'll get there very soon. Very soon indeed. I'm just listening to First Amendment talk right now. Fucking First Amendment. I was getting my earpiece right now, him just prattling. Prattle. Anybody watch the DPH debate on whatever? That was going good. I'm actually kind of disappointed I'm missing that right now. I'm going to have to review it live. All right, starting the stream now, guys. About to start here. Lots of moderator prattle happening. Let's go live. All right. All right, we're on.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Modern Day Debate. Tonight, we're going to be debating, should we affirm trans identities? To get us started, we have First Amender. Thank you so much for being here again. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. I have actually prepared a video, fully edited and ready to go. So I will be sharing that. Give me a moment. Of the outness of acceptance and victimization, a longitudinal study of depressive symptoms and suicidality of lesbian, gay, and bisexual and transgender diverse youth. The results show that the study included a were less and accepted by the family. Within individuals, the youth become more out and accepted in the family, and they concurrently reported less depressive symptoms. The accumulation of victimization experiences was associated with higher levels of depression and suicidality. The current medical consensus from virtually every medical and psychological organization supports gender-affirming care as well as identity affirmation. This includes the American Psychological Association. This also includes the American Medical Association. This also includes the American Academy of Pediatrics. This also includes the WPATH Standards of Care in the latest version, version 8. These are not fringe. This is the scientific and medical mainstream. There are many other reasons, such as providing human dignity and autonomy, social integration and stability, and overall harm reduction, but I want to address what those that oppose my argument might say. But wait, aren't all of these just leftist shills that have been bought out by leftist ideology? Sadly, the issue is quite the opposite of what you suggest. Rupert Murdoch, owner of Fox News, has built a media empire that thrives not on truth, but on sensationalism and misinformation. Internal Fox documents and court cases, such as the Dominion voting scandal settling over $700 million with Rupert Murdoch himself saying that he spread misinformation on the voting system for ratings, prove that Murdoch and his top hosts knowingly spread false narratives, not because they are true, but because the outrage drives ratings. And with higher ratings comes more ad revenue. It's a business model. Controversy equals profit. This dynamic doesn't just affect TV viewers. Fox News acts as a launching pad. Personalities like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Glenn Beck, Tomi Lahren, Candace Owens gained national recognition through Fox and then parlayed that exposure into massive internet followings. Figures like Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Brandon Tatum, Dave Rubin, Matt Walsh, and the Libs of TikTok account have all benefited from Fox's amplification, becoming influencers in vast right-wing media ecosystems. What's dangerous is that this machine replaces verified science and empirical data with a culture war talking points. Instead of engaging with the overwhelming medical and psychological consensus on issues like a trans identity, the audience is fed narratives designed to provoke emotion, reactions, and loyalty to an ideology, regardless of truth. So no, it is not the mainstream that is misleading people. You're being sold a worldview engineered for clicks and political influence. I'm asking you to step back and consider the peer-reviewed research, the medical institutions, the lived experiences, not the nightly outrage cycle that keeps Murdoch's empire profitable. In conclusion, we ought, by mainstream medical science and not right-wing media punditry, be accepting of trans individuals, because that is what the evidence shows, not for clicks, but for facts and reason. Thank you.
All right, you got it. I think that's just about the end of First Amender's introduction. So thank you so much, First Amender, for that and getting that prepared specifically for this occasion. And we're going to hand it over to Amy. I want to remind our audience that we are Modern Day Debate. We're a neutral platform hosting debates on science, politics, religion. We do hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from. We also do a Q&A at the end of these discussions. So if you do have a question for any of the speakers on screen, get it in now and it will be read with priority. So without further ado, we're going to hand it over to Amy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so very much, Ryan, for not only moderating, but all of our interlocutors and the chat out there. Hello. My name is Amy Newman, and I am a teacher, comedian, counter-apologist. But today we are talking about, should we affirm trans identities? Yes. So maybe let's talk some definitions before we speak on some reasons why we should. Trans in this case means transgender. That is to say, someone whose gender doesn't match up with their sex. With gender being a social phenomena or a spectrum of labels we give for masculine and feminine things. Women is the adult feminine gender, and man is the adult masculine gender. That's where expressions like be a man are used. In contrast, sex is biological, and in humans, that tends to mean either male or female. Sure, we could go into intersex individuals, with some people arguing over if this is classified as more than two, though I'd rather focus on the topic at hand. Should we affirm or accept someone who has a different gender than typically matches with their biological sex? Yes, and there are a few good reasons why. First of which, medical studies show that mental health outcomes drastically improve when we affirm a person's gender. Mental health, including well-being, increased resilience, and reduced suicidal risk. There are also studies showing that transgenders have brains that are more closely aligned with their typical gender, However, I think some of the real reasons to affirm a transgender person's gender aren't biological, but social. That's because being transgender doesn't mean changing one's biology or switching chromosomes. When it comes to transitioning, that process instead starts in a therapist's room, discussing what's going on in their brains. Oftentimes, it's the therapist's job to discern if someone has gender dysphoria, a fancy term for if they are transgender, or rather transgender but dealing with stress because of their current condition, or maybe something else is going on. That's also the therapist's job to discern. Though, if they do have gender dysphoria, that is to say, someone is transgender, then transitioning is the best thing they can do. And thus, treating people who are transgender with love and respect or affirming their gender is the best thing anyone else can do, especially family, friends, and coworkers. I say these groups because they are our social network, and there is nothing more important than groups like family. Worth living, thus being accepted by them is ultimately what's going to bring us happiness. The same is true to a lesser degree to the people we work with, which is as good enough a place as any to talk about pronouns. A noun, of course, is a person, place, or a thing, but a pronoun tends to be the replacement. Nouns are specific, like Texas or bread, but some pronouns can be he, she, ours. He or him tend to mean masculine pronouns, she and her the feminine, allowing us to make sentences like that's his car instead of that's the car for a more personalized version. But there is sometimes contention among some who disagree with affirming trans identities that they should have to use a person's preferred pronoun. Why should they have to be curtailed or forced to go along with what they view as either mental illness or someone denying biology? Well, it's true. I would never want to force someone to really do anything that they don't want to do, especially if it goes a personal view. That's why we have the First Amendment. However, let me answer with 3 closing remarks. First of which, let's start with something we both agree on. No one is denying or changing biology. That's why I think the wider discussion is more about the social phenomena over checking someone's gonads. When we go to buy something from the clerk at Walgreens or CVS or whatever pharmacy we use,
15
we don't
seconds.
check someone's junk. Do you mind if I go a little bit over?
All right, but we'll have to hand it over to them. They'll have a little extra, so go ahead.
I am perfectly fine with that. Instead of using sex, we use gender, or rather, we take a quick glance at the secondary sex characteristics. A fancy way for saying, are they overall, outwardly, masculine or feminine? Throw that person a pronoun like thank you, ma'am, or thank you, sir, and go on our merry way without even thinking about it. This process is why we use gender. Mental illness, although the word gets thrown around a lot as an insult online, tends to deal with, can the person function in society? A variety of reasons can hinder our ability to do so, including gender dysphoria. However, the goal of transitioning, along with having people who affirm their gender, is so that they can get a so-called new normal and go back to living life, trying to achieve dreams, pursue goals, spending free time with our loved ones. Isn't that what we want, no matter gay, straight, transgender, or not? That is to say, just live our lives being who we are.
10
And
seconds.
last,
Sorry.
That's okay. So should we affirm trans identities? Yes, because it leads to mentally healthier outcomes, because it's about biology as it is about psychology and sociology, and because it morally makes our civilization more accepting for more citizens, allowing them to better function in society. Thank you.
All right, you got it. I did want to let you put a bow onto it, but yeah, I will rescind
Thank you
on
so
my
much.
original offer. Thank you so much, AB, for your introductory statement. I'll rescind on my original statement. We'll put the timer back up to 6 minutes, up to 6 minutes per side. So, Jake Taylor, we didn't really establish who wanted to go first. We kind of flying by the seat of our pants. I'm going to say, just based on who got here first, I'm going to hand it over to Jake and let you close out the floor there. So, over to you, Jake, for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you for having me. It's good to be back on Modern Day Debate. Good to see everybody here for this spirited debate. I'm sure it will be. It's been a while since I've actually talked with First Amender. Normally we hang out more often than this. And I just wanted to say, it does get a little bit heated sometimes, but me and First Amender are actually close personal friends outside of modern day debates. So I'd like to keep it that way. Our wives go to the same Bible studies. Our daughters have the same piano teacher. We play badminton every second Thursday, and we go for lime milkshakes after. So, we're buddies. And he lost his cat a few weeks ago, and who was first on scene? I was. He was really upset. He had his little head on my shoulder and on crying on it. So, anyways, all that to say that we're going to remain buddies after this, no matter what happens. So the idea here is trans identities. Should we affirm these? One of the things in which I take a big issue with this is the fact that there is just rank hypocrisy coming from the other side with this, because some of you may or may not know that I am a lord and I have a lordship. I own a small plot of land in Scotland. So I would appreciate it if during the course of this debate, both of my opponents would refer to me as my lord. So every time they speak to me, they should say my lord X, my lord Y. And if they can do that, then at least they won't be hypocrites. So just to lay the groundwork for this debate, every time you speak to me, please refer to me as my lord, Lord Jake, etc., etc. So thank you very much, and I would appreciate that. Anyways, in terms of this, I would not ever affirm the delusion of somebody who thinks that they are transgender, because transgenderism is actually not something that exists. And what this is just basically emotional hostage taking. People are trying to take us hostage and trying to make us say things that we know to be a falsehood. And with the case of my lordship, I actually am a lord. I actually do own that plot of land in Scotland. So I'm actually not lying about that, contrary to what First Amender said last time we debated. So would really appreciate it if you guys could affirm that. But in terms of the emotional hostage taking, this is just a tactic that we say. I mean, if you've ever had a creepy boyfriend or girlfriend who says that they're going to off themselves if you break up with them, or any other different emotional threats, you don't affirm those things. If they said that to me, then I would say, okay, well, you'd still break up with them anyway. So in terms of the trans thing, if they want to try and emotionally blackmail us and take us hostage and say, well, we're going to kill them, we're going to off ourselves if you don't affirm our identities, well, it sounds like a self-correcting problem to me. So with that, I'll hand it off to Taylor.
You got it. All right, over to Taylor, and then we're going to go into our open discussion. So once again, to everybody in our live chat, I see quite a few super chats are already coming in. Keep the super chats coming in, and they will be read with priority. We really appreciate the support here at Modern Day Debate. Smash that like button while you're at it, too. It doesn't hurt. It really helps boost us up in the algorithm. We are live right now. And right now, we're going to hand it over to Taylor. So up to 6 minutes. Thanks for coming out to Modern Day Debate.
Alrighty, thanks guys. Thanks everybody for being here. Nice to see some of you guys again. All right, so I will be arguing against the claim that we should affirm trans identities. I believe as a society, we should not be affirming things that are patently untrue. I believe my opponents will have a hard time proving that trans identities are true outside of one's own assertion or interpretation of their identity. They will not find anything based in reality that can affirm a trans identity. And the reason this is important, that we shouldn't be affirming them, is because we can see the social implications at work today. We have language policing in the form of pronouns. We have children undergoing hormonal treatments with very little long-term research. There's a sort of social contagion that seems to victimize those already struggling with mental illness. And just overall, as a society, we can't define even the simplest terms. It's not good news. The definition of woman or man I would put forth that is most useful and accurate is adult human female, adult human male. Can go into that later if we have to. I would say overall, the goal of the progressives and my opponents is to use transgenderism as kind of a way to subvert a social gender norm. Though if that's the path, maybe it's more accurate to critique gender norms as a whole and concede that maybe they're just not inclusive of everybody, as not all women may be like feminine activities, roles, colors, whatever. I'd posit that those who take this path are actually hurting their own cause when buying into trans ideology, as boiling a man and a woman down to societal norms would seem to me to be the least progressive way to go. Instead, why not claim that men and women can dress how they want, participate in jobs or hobbies that they are drawn to while still maintaining their womanhood, manhood. Simply performing as something does not make you the thing. I can be mistaken by somebody dressed as a doctor when in fact they're playing a doctor on television. Me being confused or tricked would not make them an actual physician. My opponents have claimed that we can conceive of trans identities simply based on the concept of a feminine man or a masculine woman, and that if that's something we can envision, then we know what trans people are. But this would be like saying my cat plays fetch, so I have a dog-like cat, so my cat is a dog. Just because a person can be a feminine man or a masculine woman, feminine and masculine, those are the socially constructed parts, not the man and the woman. The roles can surely be subverted if they exist. Though again, that does not mean one changes their biological essence or societal definition. And I'm using gender as a synonym for sex. It's always been that way up until about 2 seconds ago. So that's how I am going to use the word. If self-identification is all it takes to become a trans woman or a man, there's no need for hormone therapy, socially transitioning, or surgeries, as all it would take is to simply claim man or womanhood, which is a situation completely unique to gender identity. If gender is all about performance, then there are incongruencies within the trans community itself. Not all trans women perform with hyperfemininity and vice versa. And not all trans people even agree on the definition that you guys will put forth today. I guarantee this. So how can we define women and man if it's based on such a loose foundation? And how can a truth be dependent on other people's acceptance and perception? I want to talk about some of the studies that we talked about. And the point here is that if we're affirming trans identities, then the implications are that people medically transition, children, adults, there are very little long-term studies on the effects of children transitioning, on hormone blockers, things like that. I have personally spoken to adults that have transitioned and then detransitioned. One of my opponents mentioned personal experiences. I think those personal experiences matter as well. And a lot of the studies that I come across on any of this topic are using all self-reported data. Self-reported data is historically inaccurate and it's very hard to replicate. You're just basing it off of people's feelings. There was a recent study, the Cass Review, that came out of London that showed that among many other findings that there is inefficacy in medical transitioning for minors. At best, we just don't know how it affects them. And it showed that the rates of depression, eating disorders, autism, ADHD, adverse child experiences are higher in trans people. So it's a correlational issue here. Why are people starting depressed, or are they already depressed? But it feels like we're taking advantage of a vulnerable group with this kind of social contagion. I believe that people may self-report feeling happier if people go along with their delusion. If I thought I was very rich and everyone around me made me feel very rich, even if I was poor, I would also report feeling happier, which the article that First Amender used is all based on self-reporting. Overall, there's very little truth that claiming that trans identities are based in truth. Thus, the implication is that to validate a trans identity is to validate a lie, something I posit is not good for society or the trans person in question. And more research will continue to come out. And even through the research we see today, it may not even help and it may hurt. There's no other mental health condition in which the treatment is to give in to someone's false perceptions. This ideology has consequences. When we have very little long-term studies, 4 years, First Amender is the one you used, longitudinal. That's hardly, it is. The data is actually from 2015, 2011 to 2015. They just analyzed the data. So that's not, it's hardly a longitudinal study. Overall, I do agree compassion is important. We should be kind and tactful and respectful to people. That's important. But I also think that affirming lies is not any of those things. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks, guys.
You got it. All right, we're going to kick it into an open discussion once again. Like I say, we're a neutral space hosting these debates. We do appreciate everybody who's hanging out in the live chat. Keep smashing that like button. We appreciate that as well. Get us boosted up in the algorithm. This is live right now. If you're here in the audience right now, if you heard that right now, then it's not live right now. You're hearing it after. Sorry. I'm going to hand it back over to the other side. So I guess what we gathered out of that is Jake and First Amender, they get along maybe better than we thought. And yeah, he knows his cat.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm just picking. All right, First
He lost
Amender.
his cat and I helped him.
That's very kind of you. All right, let's hand it over to First Amender first to respond to some of the things that you just heard.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, Jake the rattlesnake lying about my cat apparently being dead, but yet my cat seems to be moving around just fine.
we found it.
Very
We found
terrible
it.
look. Also, you are not a lord. You got scammed by a scam company. The difference is between trans people are not asking to be treated like nobility. They're asking to be recognized for who they are. So they do not die by suicide. They get denied health care or be dehumanized. You're not oppressed because people do not call you Lord, but trans people are hurt when you refuse their identity.
It is my
Nobody is
identity,
harmed
actually,
if
First
I do
Amender.
not
I
call
actually
you
am a
Lord.
lord. I
But
own a
we
small
have
plot of land
decades
in
of
Scotland,
evidence
and that would
showing,
make me a lord.
if you could just please allow me to finish.
I
No
need to
one is.
respond to the points that you're making. You
No,
just
well, I'm giving you.
criticized my
I'm giving you
identity.
my position here. No one is
But you
harmed if
how
I.
many points are you going to make?
I'm
I need
being
to respond to
entire.
the
No,
point.
no. It's This
You
is one
made
point.
a point about
This
my
is one
lordship,
point.
and you denied my identity.
I
am
didn't
a
even
lord.
finish.
I own a small plot of land in Scotland. It affects me legally.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
affects
You
me
got
socially,
scammed by a
and
scam company.
No,
That's
no,
not,
I
you're
own
not
a
a lord.
small plot of land.
And
First Amender,
secondly,
this is
no
my
one
Let's
is
give the
harmed.
Are you
benefit
saying
of the
that I
doubt.
have some
Allow
sort
me
of
to
delusion?
finish.
Hold on one
Are
second
you
there.
saying that my
One
identity
second
is
there,
false?
Jake. Yeah, we'll give him a chance to wrap up there, but let's just assume that Jake, everything's in good order. What he's telling you is the truth. But let's let First Amender make the rest of his case there. I can't tell though, Jake, because I don't know if you're.
Nobody is
being funny.
harmed if I do not call you Lord, but we have decades of evidence showing real harm when we do not affirm trans people's identities. That's the difference. This isn't a joke for them. It's life or death. Your argument doesn't challenge anything. It's just making fun. You're comparing someone's deeply felt gender identity to a gag title, and that says more about your seriousness than it does about their.
All right.
You calling yourself a Lord
Let's
is
wrap.
performative. Trans people living authentically isn't. And if you think that they are the same, you're not arguing in good faith. You're just looking for applause lines.
All right, let's hand it over to the other side. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, so I mean, this is deeply offensive. I am a lord. This is deeply rooted in my own identity. And I don't know why First Amender is refusing to call me a lord. I want him to refer to me as my lord. And if he does that, then I will be less depressed, okay? Because there's always the chance that this is something that's so important to me. First Amender, if I said to you that I was going to hold a gun to my head and pull the trigger if you don't call me my lord every time you refer to me, would you do it?
I'm not going to respond to ridiculous straw mans. I would like you to actually be a serious individual. I want to go ahead and address Taylor's argument, however, because at least there was some level of cogency. No, because it's just a ridiculous straw man. It's not an actual. It's not an actual argument. It's not an argument.
Well,
there is no argument.
Let's
I've
pull it along.
explained why there is no argument.
I agree. I agree. We're going to pull it
address
along. We're going to pull it along with some outside voices.
My argument is an argument.
Well, we're going to pull it. Yeah, let's pull it along with some outside voices. Amy and Taylor, I want to get you in here on the idea of what Jake's putting down with the title and stuff like that. So go ahead there, Amy.
And I think I'll address it, is that when we are dealing with gender, we tend to be dealing with masculine or feminine. We really are looking at something and saying, is this a boy toy or a girl toy? Things like that. What I would give as an analogy to my lord is someone who is a doctor and has a doctorate degree, and someone doesn't want to call them doctor. And you have to ask yourself, At what point do you just say, you know what? I'm either going to accept it or not. I mean, if I do think you're joking, but let's just take the example and say, what if you weren't joking? Like, what if it really did make your life better and you functioned calling you my lord? I'll be honest, I would actually be leaning in the direction of calling you my lord if I truly
Thank you.
did believe that. Now, I don't think that's the same as a gender. I do truly think that a gender is dealing with two prongs, but it would be like someone saying, look, if you don't call me a doctor and I have a doctorate degree, I could show you, I could prove to you, we can go through the medical records, all the courses, and it's kind of mean and rude that you don't address me as doctor. I feel like it's a good analogy.
Thank you. I actually appreciate that. At least somebody here is arguing in good faith and has a consistent standpoint. So you will refer to me as my lord.
I think you're joking, but if it truly did make you feel better, I do. I would rather, if I was part of your community, if I was your friend, your family, I really would. I want to go the extra
And
length.
throughout the course of this debate, you will refer to me as such.
How about this? Can you look me and promise me? Do you really believe? Does it really, would it make you, it really does improve your mental health? It makes you less suicidal?
Yes.
I mean, by all means, my lord.
Okay, fantastic. First Amender, I would like you to do the same thing. Thank you. At least First Amender, this will make you.
I want to
logically
address
consistent.
I don't know, honestly, if this
Wait,
actually works
wait,
in your
wait. Can
favor
I
the way
jump
you
in,
want it to,
please?
Jake. I think you might be arguing yes, maybe. I don't know. I'm confused. Go ahead, Taylor.
Okay, like just a few things. I feel like what Amy was kind of putting out there with like, does it like they're seemingly good intentions, like saying like, oh, among family and friends, like I do agree that maybe there's like certain social like situations where we just kind of give in to certain things because maybe it just is the polite thing to do. But when we're implying that something is polite, we're also implying that it's untrue. Like if someone asked me if they looked fat and they did, and I didn't want to be rude, I would just say no. So like number one, the analogy of a doctor, like you're saying, oh, they really are a doctor, call me doctor, but the analogy doesn't work because what if they really weren't a doctor? What if they were just running around a hospital pretending to be a doctor? Would we still validate them? And if fine, but is that the right thing to do? They're running around the
So
hospital.
Taylor, I actually believe that I feel like that you're probably I think that you're probably likely acting in much better faith here. And so I think I will address you and I will provide this information for everybody to be able to observe. I have here a paper that I wanted to share. I think it's important. So what I am sharing here, and give me a second while I update
Not
it on
another
my
screen
end.
share.
Yeah, it's another screen
All
share,
right, okay.
unfortunately.
No one cares
I'm
about
so
your brain
sorry.
waves.
All right.
Give me a moment.
I would ask that if you do screen share, well, yeah, you did give me a heads up. Just give me a heads up firstly so that I can switch the screens, and also
I apologize.
and also leave it up so when people are responding, if they want to engage with like specific things, because sometimes people like they blast through a screen share, they pull it down, and people are like, wait, bring that back up. So
Okay, so you can actually look this up. It's called The Neuroanatomy of the Transgender Identity, Mega Analytic Findings from the Enigma Transgender Persons Working Group. This is freely available. You can observe this. I have the full paper, but you will likely be behind a paywall. But anyway. So basically, what happened is using a mega analytic approach, structural MRI data of 803 non-hormonally treated transgender men and transgender women, cisgendered men, and cisgender women were analyzed. Structural brain measures, including gray matter volume, cortical surface area, and cortical thickness. The result was that transgender persons differed significantly from cisgendered persons with respect to their subcortical brain volumes and surface area, but not cortical thickness. Contrasting the four groups of trans male, trans woman, cis male, and cis woman, we observed a variety of patterns that not only depended on the direction of gender identity, as in towards male or towards female, but also on the brain measure as well as the brain region examined. The conclusion that they have observed is that rather than being merely shifted towards either end of the male-female spectrum, transgender persons seem to exhibit their own unique brain phenotype. What I find particularly interesting about this paper is that it is not a sociological paper, but a neurobiological one. Specifically, what it is measuring is very specific regions in the brain and can exhibit trans individuals possessing their own unique brain phenotypes. As a result, being trans in and of itself is not social. In fact, it is very often that it has a biological imperative. It is literally wired to you when you are a baby. This is something that happens endocrinologically as the fetus is developing.
All
And
right, we get the
so
I'd like
argument.
to
this
Can we
speak on
move
shows
on to it
Wait,
now?
I
an
want to.
actual basis,
Yeah.
and this is the
Is
actual
this going to be
scientific
First
understanding.
Amendment
Thank you.
Spurgatron
I do
sort of,
apologize. I just got
monologues,
I
or are
just
we
got
going to be able
the
to respond to the arguments?
I just got the poll up in the chat. Yeah, let's have a chance to respond. Did you want him to bring up that paper again there, Taylor, so you could
No, I
address
got
it
it.
specifically? Okay.
I actually had a whole chunk on brain thing. I just skipped over it. Like, I'll just say really quickly, I studied this, and first of all, brain studies are very, again, hard to replicate. Number two, the brain is constantly changing. The brain is plastic, so things like cortical thickness, that changes all the time. That is often the brain area that's cited, as well as the amygdala. But the amygdala and cortisol, or that what you just cited, is often affected by experience. We also see it change in those who suffer PTSD. The cortical thickness is affected by age, exercise, environment. So no, it's not when you're a baby. No one's brain is like showing anything when you're a baby. Your brain is very often shaped by your experiences. Like I cited in the other paper, a lot of people that have gone through trans hormonal therapies, they have adverse childhood experiences that can change your brain significantly. They've also found that gay men's brains, because the amygdala can be affected by sexual activity, just all sorts of experiences. Environmental, you're talking about environmental still, so it's not all biological. Gay men's brains, they resemble women's often more than men's. Gay men aren't women. So the brain is very tricky. It's plastic. It's constantly changing. I don't think that's a good basis for your argument. Also, I don't think it includes all trans people. I think that you're going to leave out a lot of trans people if that's your basis for defining a trans man or woman is the brain.
Right. Amy was making some faces there. Did you want to respond to that one right quick?
Well, I would actually just want to talk to her larger point that she was bringing up about it being untrue, because I think that comes to whether it is an objective thing, something that is either male, female, or what I would say is more neurology, is more feelings and brain states. And it would be, in my opinion, like saying that your favorite color isn't true. Because to me, it is either your gender is feminine or masculine, and it is, again, how you feel. And to say, well, you don't feel that way, which I think you're saying it doesn't correspond with biology. But I would say that we aren't talking about biology. We're talking either a social phenomena, or largely, if we took it out, it would be neurological, social
All right.
phenomena.
All right. Over to you, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about First Amenders gay brain studies, if I'm totally honest, because I think that it comes down to one thing. First Amender, if somebody did have this gay trans brain or whatever it is, and they're a man and they've got this allegedly trans brain, but they think they're a man, are they a man or are they a woman?
If you're referring to sex or gender, I would have to ask them if we're referring to gender. If we are referring to sex, it's typically whether or not they have large or small gametes.
Okay, so they have got the transest brain in the whole world. Their brain is just all of the indicators that they have the trans brain, but they think they're a man. Are they a man or are they a woman?
If they believe internally that they are a man, then they would be a man.
Okay, so there you go. Your whole entire study does not matter. Can we not get any more of those stupid screen shares anymore, First Amender, because it's completely redundant. You've just destroyed
I
it.
was in for roughly 98% of trans people possessed these morphological differences in the brain. And I would also agree that the cortical thickness can change. That much is true. However, you are not accounting for additional portions of the brain, and it also doesn't address the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis portion, which is the brain region involved in the gender identity, has been shown to align more closely with the gender identity than the biological sex. This was found in Zua et al., 1995 in Nature.
Yeah, literally doesn't matter though, First Amendment, because it all comes down to what they think and what they feel. So it is
You have to
purely
ask
social.
them what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, so it comes down to what they think. It doesn't matter about if they have this gay
You have
trans
to
brain.
ask them
All it
what
matters
it
is about
is.
what they think. So it does not matter.
You
Your
can't
study is
confirm
completely
how it is
irrelevant, my
they
friend.
feel internally. Do you understand what like qualia is? This is a basic concept of qualia. If we have to understand what somebody is experiencing during qualia, then you would have to ask them.
Wait,
For
First Amendment,
example,
can
if you went up to somebody and you say, "Does it hurt?" and then they say, "No, it doesn't hurt," but you see a giant gaping wound, right? You have to take them for their word that it probably doesn't hurt, and they're going through some internal experience that would be vindicative of that.
Yeah, so you would argue then that actually it does hurt, or they are going through this experience, even if they say it doesn't hurt, but they are going through that experience,
No,
right?
I wouldn't. I would apply what their internal phenomenology is. That's how it
Okay.
works.
All
Can
right, let's let
internal
Taylor.
So if they say that
Let's
they
let
are a
Taylor.
man, then
Hold
they're a
on.
man, and their internal
Hold on.
phenomenology says that they're a man. So it doesn't even matter about it doesn't matter about anything that you just said.
All right.
Like
I have
It,
the whole
it
One
does
entire
second,
because
study,
one
people
second,
who
guys.
self-report
Hold on.
themselves,
Hold
98.
on. I'm just sorry to put you on mute there, First Amender. But Taylor's been trying to jump in, and it's only fair. I'm going to ask Jake just to make some space here for your partner as well. Go ahead there, Taylor.
just the simplest question. First Amendment, can internal perceptions be wrong? Yes or no? Just
Sure.
okay, so then again, your argument falls apart. If everything is based on internal perceptions and you agree that internal perceptions can be wrong, then that's it. They can be wrong.
I
So
think what's really
there has to
important
be more
if
basis.
somebody is possessing an internal sense of being the opposite gender, what I would suggest is follow WPATH standards. And typically speaking, if you're going to show up and you need medical care because of gender dysphoria, you feel like that you're a man trapped in a woman's body or whatever, then you talk to a psychologist, you talk to your endocrinologist, you actually get informed consent as to what are the results of these things. This is the standard procedure.
So because of the study I brought up earlier, in the UK, they no longer let children under 18 take hormone or puberty blockers. That's recent. So clearly these standards can change. Do
I
you
would be
feel like because of the lack of long-term studies, because of the fact that we don't know what these medications are doing to children, which is an implication of like validating this whole thing, that we should be very like prudent in the way that we understand this, and we should be very clear and have very clear standards when we mean what we say. We should have agreed upon definitions if we're going to make children take puberty blockers.
hormone blockers and puberty blockers in terms of throughout the world have been operated and used on children for decades. There are numerous sex disorders and hormone disorders that allow somebody to get gender affirming care. This is not new. This has been something that's been around since the 70s. It's only roughly until 2015 that these things started coming into vogue and wanting to protest against it. In terms of UK papers as well as the Sweden papers, fair enough. There's always developments that can be done in the scientific community, in which case that is a discussion that ought happen between the endocrinologists. But I'm just going to let you know the amount of papers that exist on my side is like this giant mountain of evidence in comparison to maybe I think there's 3 or 6 papers that are
No,
on the other side in the
that's not true.
European journals and studies.
There's
I'm not wrong about this.
there's lots of there may be lots of papers, but you're having a replication crisis on your side. It's very hard to replicate the results that are happening. And again, almost all of your papers are based on self-reported data. Again, I can see that if someone is going to affirm my delusions, I will report being happier. That does not mean anything. That is not a great basis.
There's a replication crisis throughout all science, and the reason why that there is a replication crisis is because these things are becoming more and more specialized. Because things become more and more specialized, it gets harder and harder to actually have other people replicate it. This, however, is not a problem, because as soon as something gets applied or that we find differences in papers, then effectively what happens is that it just gets re-examined. It's not anywhere close to what the standards for rigor and replication being re-examined are what you're implying. It just is not the case.
Okay, so First Amender, what about me? If you did a examination of my brain and I had no transness in my brain, I had the least trans brain you could ever imagine, just purely male, but I decided that I was going to be a woman, would you affirm my trans identity?
Yes, I would, and I would have you go see a psychologist to rule you out.
No, no, no. I don't want to see a psychologist. I'm just telling you that it is that that
Okay,
I'm
then
trans,
I would
that I'm a
affirm your
woman.
identity.
Then you would? Okay, so then it's all about how I feel. Then it doesn't matter
Mm.
about what my brain says.
I would
Well,
also
I
say
think
those
that
are
what's
drag
it-
queens.
You have to understand that what you're talking about
So
effectively
those
is
people aren't trans, Amy.
what you're talking about is effectively an impossibility. I don't think you understand
Oh,
just
interesting.
what requirement is
Ah.
necessitated in becoming trans.
So
You think that it's
you,
as
First
easy as
Amender,
just
are the arbiter
flicking
of
a
who is
switch.
trans.
No, I'm just saying it's not as easy as simply
Interesting.
flicking a switch. You
Ah,
can't
How
just
do
sit
you
there
know
and say
that?
that you're
Yeah.
that.
What's the process then? What's the
Right.
process until you become trans?
I mean, typically what people do when they become trans, they usually exhibit themselves outwardly as well as inwardly. There's
But what if they
behavioral
don't?
changes. There's
What if they don't do that?
Yeah,
okay,
exactly. What if they don't?
then I suppose then they would probably be quite happy and wouldn't possess gender dysphoria in any
But what if
way.
they do? What if I
Then they
right
would
now?
make changes about their body.
What if they
Yeah, but
don't?
what if they don't though?
I
That's the
just gave
question,
you
First
the
Amender.
I just gave you the answers.
No, you didn't.
You're
Now
saying
we're
you
now
know
we're
they
just
do that.
reversing
You-
everything.
They think
This
they're
is so
trans,
ridiculous.
But
You
say,
just
but say
told
they're
us we
really
don't-
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
but they think
provide
they're
your
trans. They
studies.
think they're
Provide
trans.
your studies.
They
No.
think they're trans.
Prove me wrong.
We don't need any. We don't
Yeah.
need any studies because we're
Yeah,
basically we're
correct.
just
The
operating
right
on
never
common
needs
sense here,
any
and your
studies. They
and
never
your studies
provide
are
any
actually all
evidence
bullshit.
ever, no
I
matter
provided
what.
evidence.
And they bring
I've
in
never
stupid,
seen-
silly arguments
is
like,
he
call
just gonna
me
spurt the
Lord,
whole time,
everybody.
James?
Your cat
Is
is dead.
he going to spur the whole time, James?
All right. Once again, my name's Ryan. I should change it.
Well,
I
you
said
should
that.
change your name.
I
to
said,
Ryan then.
I did say that. Don't get on his case, everybody. All
I'm going
right?
to keep calling you James
It
anyway.
says James in our chat. Okay, over to you,
Well,
Amy.
Look,
do.
I will affirm it. If you want me to call you Ryan, I will affirm that. Okay.
I,
You want me to call you Ryan?
I'm gonna change. You stop that. My name is.
You want me to call
Ryan.
you Ryan?
I mean, you want to
Okay,
call
I'll
me
call you.
James Coons? I can get like instantly swole or whatever. I don't know. All right.
Yeah.
Let me
It's
just
possible.
rename. Here, look
But
at that.
First Amender,
Well-
the question is quite simple here. First
There.
Amender,
Perfect.
we're asking you if somebody identifies as trans, but they don't want to have any of the outwards expressions, but they're saying to you that they're a woman, but they reject the social construct of womanhood. They reject that women wear dresses. They reject that women wear lipstick. They're going to dress as a man. They're going to call themselves a woman, but they look like a man, and they're not going to get any help because they reject the psychological paradigm as well. Is that person a trans woman if they have zero medical diagnoses and zero social outwards reflection of that?
And
Are
then
they-
I mean,
have a
if
question,
they
yeah.
outwardly show themselves like, or if they say that they are that, then I'm going to call them that. Yes.
Okay, so then what it ultimately boils down to, First Amender, is it's whatever the fuck we say it is, and you can't get away from that. So you can try and bring up my studies
yeah,
all you want,
again,
but your
it's,
studies, you probably have
it
the
has
worst
to do
studies
with
I've ever seen in my
qualia.
life, First Amender. Your studies are so
It has
bad,
to do with
and they just
qualia.
are so
on,
instantly
let's let
refuted
Jake
that it's
finish up his
actually
point.
embarrassing.
He's not addressing at all what I have addressed. I've already addressed this. I've said that it's qualia. That in order to understand qualia, you have to ask them. You don't have an option. If you ask somebody, then you get an insight as to what they're experiencing. There's no way
Beautiful, I love
around
it.
that.
I love it. That's the standard then. It's just
Oh
if you
my
ask them and
God.
they say it, that's the standard. So that's what your
Would we
worldview boils
approach
down to. And you're
other-
trying to
any-
intellectualize it, and it's just not working, First Amendment.
I would really rather with Taylor because at least Taylor is
I know,
somewhat
because I'm just destroying
somewhat
you
good
constantly.
faith. No, it's
cutting
just
your-
because
Can I
it's not good
respond to some
faith.
of
You're
that?
not
I think so.
acting in good faith at all.
think
Not
so.
even
I'm
not
gonna
even
issue
remotely.
the
You're
mute
doing
there.
it for clicks.
That me and my football
It's
shirt
such
here,
a
right-wing
shame.
chud, is just destroying all of your arguments.
Just gonna put you two on mute for a second. Go ahead there, Amy, and then I want to hand it over to Taylor
Sure.
and try to wheel us into some different territory, maybe. Behave
Indeed.
yourselves.
Because after I answer this, I just want to ask both of them a question. I would
Okay.
say that someone who dresses outwardly, at least, and yet doesn't feel like a woman or feminine on the inside explains many drag queens. Maybe not all, but I get told often that they go home and are very comfortable just going back and being men. And it's actually when they're just going out for performance that they like to be drag queens. Doesn't mean you can't be transgender and a drag queen or a drag king. But I wanted to ask you two actually a question, which is, I think that transitioning, being transgender, is often a response, at least in Western society, to there being two buckets, to there being masculine and feminine. And they're not really having a good pipeline for feminine men in society and masculine women in society. My question to you, are you for gender norms? Are you for the type of traditional roles, as they would call it? Or are you more postmodern? Because I want a more postmodern society. If you're going to say, look, you don't need to be transgender, you could be a feminine man, and that's amazing and brilliant. And you could be a masculine woman, and we have spaces for you. And I guess my question, is it a different pipeline? Which way makes it easier? Because I'm imagining just a way that transgenders can assimilate in society.
So,
In Western society right now, that's two buckets. You
so just
handing it
to
over.
just to kind of surmise this whole thing. So you're asking if they affirm what would be more like traditional gender roles is kind of the core of the question.
Yes, because if you like more traditional gender roles, I would say that so far we actually have our two buckets, and we're becoming those two buckets. If you want a more postmodern society, I'm open for that, but is that what you want? Are you
All right,
pushing for
let's
that?
go for Taylor first, just to get your voice in here. So go for it.
Sure. I mean, to answer the question, like, am I for traditional? Like, I do believe that there are like biological, like, truisms about the sexes, that sexes are better at certain things, or they should be, they may be happier doing certain things. And I think that overall as a society, like, we should maybe strive for more traditional gender roles, but I don't think they're set in stone. And I agree with Amy that if there was a way where it was more about a feminine man, because I think the question comes down to, what are you asking of everybody else? What are you asking us to do? Because you say, are they welcome in certain spaces? Do I want biological males in women's spaces? Absolutely not. Do I want to feel like I have to use pronouns lest I be an emotional like abuser or whatever I'm accused of? No. So I think that the question is, what are the people asking of society? Are you asking to assimilate to something that feels very untrue and that is patently untrue? Because of course there's feminine men, of course there's masculine women. That's not based in any sort of, lie. That has always existed. So I am more for those two buckets.
All right. Did you want to add on anything there, Amy, to respond before Jake kind of gives his 2 cents?
Sure. I will just put my 2 cents in because I am very sympathetic when I get told that we want safety, or biological women say we want safety. We don't want to be put in with biological men. What I would push back towards is that I don't believe that transgender men or women are a threat to biological women. And I would rather push towards more inclusive, universal design, which tends to be, how can we make everyone safe? And so it's how can we make a more inclusive bathroom? Maybe that's in having all doors and having individuals, more family bathrooms. I'm not 100% sure what the solution is, but I would push for everyone being safe, because what I would say is the transgender women are also afraid of the biological men. And I know that they get told, well, you are a biological man, you shouldn't be afraid, just go in there, wear your high heels. And yet that sounds like almost the same thing kind of being thrown to the wolves, if that makes sense. And instead of just one side being thrown, I'd rather no one is, if that makes
All right,
sense.
we'll get over to you in just 1 second, First Amender. I want to give Jake Rattlesnake here a chance to respond as well, and then we'll give you back the floor there and get some back and forth going. So over to you, Jake.
Yeah, my personal preference would be that traditional roles of men and women are a positive thing. I think it kind of does deviate from the topic of the debate a little bit, in the sense that we're asking, should trans people have their identities affirmed? But yeah, my personal preference would be that roles of the sexes are important.
Can I just respond real quickly? I'll tell you why it ties together. As if, again, this
Thanks
is
for
just a
your patience there,
hypothesis.
First Amender.
if you were to have your child come to you and say, I'm a transgender woman, would you be okay with them saying, look, I'm not a transgender woman, but I am a feminine man and I want to live my life as a feminine man? Is there a difference there to you?
I mean, what do you mean by feminine, though?
I would say that defying what you view as the traditional gender roles. I'm not knocking traditional gender roles. I'm not knocking people who want to break those either way. But what I'm saying, is there some sort of difference? Are you saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, go be a feminine man? Or are you saying, again, not to put it, but man up and just stop being feminine and just be a traditional man, be masculine? Like, what is the solution where everyone wins? Is there a solution where everyone wins?
I mean, well, if he said that he thinks if my son, let's call him Timmy, right? If Timmy comes to me and Timmy says, Daddy, I am a girl, I will say, no, Timmy, you're not a girl. You're a boy, Timmy. Okay. But if Timmy comes to me and says, Daddy, I believe that I have some more feminine characteristics, like maybe I'm a little bit more sort of empathetic and maybe I cry a little bit more, all these sorts of things, well, then you wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that. But if Timmy is saying to me that he thinks he's a girl, that's the problem.
All right, over to you, First Amender. You've been listening to a lot there, taking it all in. Your thoughts on that closing statement from Jake?
Yes, I have a few questions. For Taylor, and if Jake wants to answer honestly, then I would love to hear it from him as well.
I've been answering honestly this whole
if
time.
If affirming someone's gender identity drastically reduces their risk of suicide and it doesn't harm anyone else, why not affirm them?
Because it's a lie.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't think that you can prove that it won't harm anybody else.
We've already proved that. I've provided the papers to indicate that exact thing off of multiple medical journals.
Okay, but you're saying that you can prove that me affirming somebody's identity will not harm anybody else. I'm saying that if we as a society do that for everybody that is trans all the time, then that is creating a societal norm of transness, which I think transness in general is bad for society. So I don't think you can say that that can't harm anybody. That's not
okay. I feel like calling somebody by a trans identity is not harming anyone, and I'm also losing you. I'm also losing you as to how exactly it hurts society to harm. But okay, we can go to the next question. It's fine.
No,
we can just
I want to continue
disagree
with this one. I actually think this is a good question, First Amender. How is it harming you to call me my lord?
Is your question with a question? Cool. Now we're going to move on to the next question.
We go.
Why do you think every major medical and psychological organization?
You don't dictate
yeah,
the
again,
the
problem is, Jake, is that you're not in good faith. I want to actually have a real debate. Can I just get a mute for Jake? This is ridiculous.
Just 1 second there, Jake, just because I do want to give First Amender a chance to respond to what you guys all just laid out in your last couple minutes there.
Yeah, but he asked a question. I'm trying to engage with the question here,
with another question, and not answering the freaking question.
Yeah, he can call me.
And you're still stuck on the Lord thing, even though I've addressed the Lord thing. You're not responding.
Hold on. If Jake doesn't get this point out, then he'll want to jump in again. So I want him to get
he's terrified of the arguments, and that's okay. If I was him, I'd be scared too. I understand he gets scared sometimes. But First Amender, simply put, you're saying, well, it doesn't hurt anybody for you to affirm these identities. We would disagree with that. We would say that it actually does hurt people. It's corrosive to society. However, I'm simply asking you, how does it affect you negatively to call me my lord? And because even if you think that I'm wrong, if you think I'm delusional, if you think I've been scammed, if I say that it's hurting my mental health,
answer my question with another question.
This is a perfectly good response to your worldview. If I say I want to be called my lord because it affects my mental health, it's not going to hurt you to say it. Why don't you say it?
Because you don't have a risk of suicidal ideation by me not calling you Lord.
Prove it.
What do you mean prove it? You're not doing it now. What do you mean? And you're not going to do it later or 2 weeks from now or a month from now. And you're not going to get completely removed from your family and your friends and your job and literally anybody who doesn't agree with you.
Okay, so if a trans person comes to me and says affirm,
okay, so I want to go back to the next question instead of the ridiculous
discussion. Hold on. You just put that out there.
The next question.
I would like to ask Taylor another question. You put a lot out there, First Amender. Let's let him respond. And if you want to respond to him, or if you're going to let him have the last word.
He sleeps with the lights
Hold
on.
on, without
That's
the meta,
okay.
without the meta discussion.
Sorry,
let's go
if
for
he
it.
does sleep with the lights on. But anyways, so if a trans person comes to me and they say, affirm my identity, or else, I'm going to off myself, and I say, do it then. You're not doing it now. So how am I meant to tell first? If they're not doing it now, if they're not currently in the process of hurting themselves, why should I affirm their delusion?
Yeah, I mean, you're still stuck on the Lord argument, and I would like to move forward if that's okay.
No. This is
So
a
I'm
different
going back
argument
to
now.
the next question for
Ah,
Taylor. Why
Let's
do you
runs
think that
away
every?
again.
Let's
No, I'm
proceed.
not going to waste
All right,
my
I'm gonna-
time.
I'm gonna-
Like, I've
I'm gonna
already
ask-
addressed it.
Hold on, I'm gonna
a
ask politely.
functionally
I'm gonna ask politely, just both of you gents there, that it doesn't seem like we're gonna move past this one. So I am gonna give it back to First Amender to push us into some other
Surely
territory.
Just quickly, I'm a functionally
Thank you. I
illiterate Australian.
appreciate
I
that.
rode a kangaroo to school in my youth, and you can't even respond to my arguments.
All right.
All right. So the next question I have for Taylor. So let me ask you this. Why do you think that every major medical and psychological organization around the world supports gender affirming care? Are they all wrong, or is it part of a conspiracy? Genuine question.
I think that it is more societally acceptable at this moment. I think that a lot of, academia right now is very left leaning. I think that a lot of research showing opposite results would not be published. And again, I just don't trust the validity of these papers in general because it's all self-reported. I just don't trust the validity of them in general. So,
Well, so I guess like my only concern is like, number one, you're saying it's all self-reported. Yes, if you're referring to somebody's qualia, you kind of have to ask them. So it would effectively, by all intents and purposes, be self-reported. That would mean that no matter what criteria, like for example, if I had a paper that gauged, I don't know, like pain level, that would be self-reported. You would basically have to reject all papers that like engage with like pain level, I guess is my issue. Okay. So I understand your concerns. I see how you see that it is more societally acceptable at this moment. Actually, I would actually venture to say that most people are actually quite anti-trans, and me being on the side of the pro-trans position is not seen as societally acceptable. It is not more societally acceptable at this moment. There are currently laws being put in place that are specifically
have an
discriminating
answer.
against
Yeah,
trans people.
let's let them
as
jump in here.
well
Hold on.
as well, it's
Before you
not left
steamroll,
leaning.
before you steamroll away, I want you to hold your thought and let the others jump in here. So go ahead there, Taylor.
what would you how can you speak on the proven comorbidity of mental illnesses that go along with people that are trans identity, things like autism, depression, adverse childhood experiences? How do you speak on that? Because again, I can say a harm is that if people have these underlying issues and you're choosing to just say, okay, you're trans, like let's just like play into that. Much like if a schizophrenic person was like, I'm hearing voices, and it's like, great, let's talk to the voices instead of treating this underlying illness. That seems like a pretty palpable harm to me.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that if you're going to have any amount of effective treatment, it would be really important to have a psychological evaluation
Right. And
as determined by the WPATH standards. Regarding trans issues, I don't think it should just simply be self-diagnosis. I do believe that you should go to for a psychological analysis.
and the
And so if
analysis
you're
will be a
concerned about some sort of
self-diagnosis. The analysis will say, how do you feel? Like a man. Great, you're trans.
Yeah, no,
don't-
it's not that simple though. It takes a great deal of time just to go through that, right? It's a multi-hour procedure.
But what
and
are they
it's
looking for?
usually
You haven't
three
given
it's
us
usually
anything.
three individual analyses in order to get to the point of things like hormone blockers. It's not as simple as you say it is. But I agree with you. We should weed out those comorbidities and have proven methods to be able to weed out things where it could be a social thing. Sure, I completely agree with you.
But you haven't given us any objective criteria onto what that diagnosis would even look like. How do you?
There is no one size fits all
Right,
approach.
so
The human brain
what a
is in
dangerous
itself
game to play.
possesses millions and millions of different variables and factors to take into account. You need to ask them. That's how it works. That's how it works with any. Do you believe like all of psychology is wrong?
I believe that social sciences are dubious at times. Yes, I believe.
No,
Social
I'm saying
sciences
specifically,
That's a
not all
social
of social.
science. Yes,
I understand it's a social science. I'm saying psychology in specific. Do you believe psychology specifically is wrong?
I believe it can be wrong at times. Yes.
Okay, so things like the placebo effect, you would say is not true
It's
because
not relevant
it's
to the debate.
discovered in psychology. No, because you said you don't trust psychology, right?
I don't know.
One
I
of the
don't-
things
I-
that was discovered in psychology is the placebo effect. So
No, I
let me
didn't say I
ask you
don't
this.
trust
Do
psychology. I
you
don't
believe
trust
that the
this
placebo
brand-
effect is false? Yes or no?
I'm not answering that. I don't believe.
Why
that this-
can't you answer that
because
simple
it's not
question?
relevant, and I believe that
Oh
this
my God.
brand new diagnosis that has been made up in the last few
All
years
right.
has very
Yeah.
little basis in
Yeah,
reality.
you're just as
Can you
lost
actually
as
answer the
everybody
question
else.
before when she talked about
Definitely-
the replication crisis?
I
Because a lot of
did
times these things,
answer that
a
question.
lot of times these things actually struggle to replicate their findings, and also there's a lot of
This is
politics that
wrong.
goes on with psychology as well.
Hold on
In
there for a
terms,
second.
in terms of these studies that you find, you'll often get lobbies who are trying to fund these various different studies. So it's very hard to actually tell what is true and what is not. And also, psychology is just a study of the mind. Study of the abstract and abstract concepts. So it's very difficult to actually create objective realities. Whereas if you're looking at cancer, for example, if I tell you that I've got cancer but I don't have cancer, then I don't have cancer. So we can objectively look at that. But psychology is different.
Just 1 second there, Amy. I'll hand it to you in just 1 second. Actually, I think he's done. Oh, look at that. I was like, I thought you were.
I
just
keep my
taking
points concise.
Exactly.
That was great. All right, over to you, Amy.
Prattling.
So I just want to address that this notion of self-reporting, because it is true we're taking a lot of self-reported data. I think that unfortunately happens sometimes. I'll give an analogy. Analogies aren't perfect. However, it is often reported that some flavors of religiosity, that they overall experience happier, healthier metrics in some sort of scale. Now, again, it is self-reported. We can't actually get into their brain and say, are they really happier? And yet, I think when we're dealing with brain states, when we're dealing with the type of data where we're trying to understand one's feelings, we have to use self-reported data. And I think this is one of those situations which we do.
Yep. I mean, I think that we can sort of move on from this. I really do want to speak about McLovin's standard for what makes a trans
Personal
person here.
attack, not
So
relevant.
before McLovin said that it was a feeling, we boiled it down to the fact that it's just a feeling. He's talking about qualia, the conscious experience. It's just a feeling.
You
right?
have to ask people how they're
you also
experiencing
said
things.
It
That's
was
what
a
qualia is.
psychological analysis. So you'd have to go and have somebody analyze you psychologically. But then we said, but
You
what if they
wouldn't
don't do
doubt a
that? He
pain
still
test.
said-
That's also
so if you want to just
qualia.
let me speak, that'd be great, McLovin. This is what people are here to hear anyway. They said that he said something about the psychological. Doesn't really matter because if they say that they feel that way, he's still going to affirm their identity. And then he said something that was really quite actually troubling to me. He said that if somebody says that they're trans and that they're going to off themselves, if they're not doing it in that moment, if he can't tell that they're doing it right then he still won't affirm it. And that's why he won't actually affirm my lordship, and he won't actually affirm that it's deeply troubling for me because he can't see the effects of it. So your standards are just actually all over the place here, Fogel.
Whenever you're ready there, First Amender, that's over to you.
It's like the
I want to
opposite of a
address the
rage quit. It's like
replication
a passive
crisis
quit.
instead of just the ridiculous personal attacks. It's obvious that Jake the
So he dodges
Rattlesnake is
again.
not actually being
Dodges
serious in
again.
this discussion. Yes,
Dodges
because you're
again,
not.
just made good
All right.
arguments.
All right,
Can
just
I
1
just
second,
please
Jake.
get
If
a
it is
mute?
if it
Can
is
I
the-
please get
hold
a
on,
mute for
hold on.
Jake the
Just-
Rattlesnake?
all
I
right, hold on,
actually
hold on,
want to
hold
address
on,
people
hold
who
on,
are
hold on. Hold on, both of you. I'll put you both on mute for just a minute. I'm going to give you the floor first, Mender. I hate putting people on mute when I'm already planning to put on mute. But I think if he is truly dodging Jake the Rattlesnake, I think you've already gotten that out there, that's how you feel about the situation. And other people will be able to make that determination. But I do want to give him a chance to respond. So go ahead.
If he
there, First
dodges, he
Amender.
loses. If he dodges now, he loses. Go.
All right, well,
Yeah, I mean, I've already addressed the Lord argument early in. I gave you a full 2-3 paragraph long explanation why it's wrong. So I'm moving forward, right? You're still
Another
stuck on
common
the
McLovin
ridiculousness, and you are not addressing what I even responded with. You completely dodged it, and you just kept saying Lord. Now I'm going back to what was an actual argument that was being presented, the replication crisis. There is no systemic replication crisis in transgender studies. The field faces challenges like funding limitations, political interference, and sample size constraints, but the core findings around the identity affirmation, mental health outcomes, and efficacy of medical care are well supported and are being increasingly replicated. Okay, we can move forward.
Actually, the efficacy of medical care was just disproven in the study I cited. That at best we just have no idea if it helps at all. So that's just like
The
patent.
efficacy of medical care has
Of-
been
of
disproven.
gender
What are you
affirming
referring
medical
to?
care, of the gender affirming medical care for
Okay,
young
hold
adults
on.
and children.
So, did you see my video where I showed all of those different groups that agree with gender affirming care? Those are all wrong. I just want to be clear. There's about 20 different groups, all scientific basis, that are telling you that gender affirming care is effective, and you're going to cite a single study to say all of that is wrong.
The point is that the reason I keep knocking on the self-reporting data, which is all that you have, is that, again, if we're going to agree, no, it's important. If we're going to agree, which Jake and I agree, that there is no basis of truth to this, and that thus it must be some sort of delusion or mental illness, is that we cannot trust self-reported data then. If we ask people, are you happier because we affirmed this? And they say yes, that proves nothing. So you keep citing all these studies, but what I'm saying is it means nothing. Because again, if I had this delusion that I was the most beautiful person in the world and everyone just said I was, yeah, I'd feel happier, but maybe there would be some underlying issue of why I need everyone to affirm that for me, and that it's not
Okay,
true. We
I'm
don't
going to
do
ask you a
that with
simple
any other
question.
mental illness.
Wrong. Self-reported data, it can be highly empirically
can
valid.
be.
I'm going to ask you a basic question. How do you determine that somebody has depression?
There are behaviors that we can see as well. There are
No,
substance abuse.
right? It's not just behaviors, right? Because if
We're
you're
now gonna
applying
get into the
DSM-5
whole, like,
criteria, what about anxiety? What about PTSD?
I can talk about
Do we ask them how you feel?
yes, we do, but I
But
want to
that's
ask.
not that. But is that valid?
It can be, sure, but it also
Okay,
cannot be.
so then that is also
Because
the
we have also
case
observable
regarding
things that we can
trans
see.
individuals.
I'm
It
not gonna-
comes down to qualia. Exactly.
You're assuming
All right, let's
that
give Taylor
Oh
a
my
chance.
goodness.
All right,
you're
let's let Taylor.
assuming that I validate every like psychological like method, that I think that all of these methods are bulletproof. I think that there's many issues wrong with the field of psychology, but that's not what we're debating. You're
I
asking
look
why
forward to your paper that is going to dismantle literally every single empirically validated mental health diagnosis, such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD, gender identity, pain and symptom reporting, substance use and behavior disorders, as well as global health studies on self-reported
the
happiness.
only reason
I really would love to see you disproving
the
all of that.
only reason we're continually talking about this is because you keep citing papers about self-reported data. You're not. That's the only thing you
You're
see
the one dismantling
citing.
self-reported
Right, because that's all
data,
you're
but the
citing
reality is
about
that
why we should take this
self-reported data
seriously.
can absolutely be empirically
It
verified.
can be, among other things, and in
Okay, so then
situations.
what have you read regarding gender identity and gender studies? What do
I
you know
cited
about
it
this
in
subject?
my opening. I cited it in my opening. So I'm not going to keep
What
going
did you cite?
here. The cast review about this whole the actual
So that single
of gender
study?
Hold on
government.
first a
It's
minute.
a
Let's
review
let her
meeting
explain.
of many studies.
So that
no,
single
it's not
study.
of many studies. It's
You
not
have many studies. I
that's what a
cited many
review is.
studies. I didn't see you cite many studies.
Okay.
I
Also-
saw you cite one thing, and then I showed you the little tiny handful of papers that exist in Sweden in
But
that
the
one
difference-
UK study, and then the mountains and mountains of empirical evidence on
difference-
multiple different fields of study.
All right.
You're somehow correct.
Just quickly,
Before
let me get in
you
here for a
continue on,
second.
and absolutely, I will let you in, but your mic is a little bit louder than everybody else's. If you could
Sorry,
just
I'm
tweak it
yelling.
a
I'm
little
yelling.
bit.
I'll
Well, it's
quiet
not just the
down.
yelling. It's
I'll quiet down.
all right. It's just the headroom on the amp there, but or your mic. But go ahead there, Jake, when you want to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a debate about who has the most studies. And if it was a debate about who had the most studies, then First Amender would surely win. So congratulations on having a lot of studies, First Amender. This is a debate that ultimately boils down to who has the most logical position and who can defend their position the best. Taylor's position is much more logically defensible than First Amender's position. And all he's saying is, I've got more studies than you. First Amendment, we don't care if you've got more studies because we can just reduce your studies to their logic and we can just destroy them as Taylor just did with you. So you can pull studies out of your backside until you go blue in the face. We don't care. The audience doesn't care. The audience wants to see who's got the more logical position here. And your position is illogical because all of your studies, if you got all the studies in the world, First Amendment, thousands of them, and they were all just, completely rigorous, your position still boils down to it's whatever they say they want to be. That's what it still always boils down to. And when you say qualia, you're just talking about personal, subjective experience and preferences. And we've continuously dismantled this throughout the entire debate. And every time I try and bring up my points, you just dodge and just run away. You literally turn around and you run away from the points that I've just made. So just to let you know, it doesn't matter how many studies that you've got, First Amendment.
My position does not boil down to whatever studies say. That is my view is informed by evidence, not vibes and ideology. If all of the best data, science, and expert consensus say that affirmation saves lives and it improves well-being, and if it causes no widespread harm, why would I ignore that? You, on the other hand, are asking me to throw out all of that in favor of what? Your gut feeling? A meme? You're not providing any critical thinking. You are providing anti-intellectualism.
A gut feeling? So what's wrong with a gut feeling, First Amender? If I just feel as though it's all bullshit and I can't really sort of like defend it in any way, but I just feel as though it's all bullshit, what's wrong with my gut feeling?
Is PTSD bullshit?
PTSD?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't know
In
if
some
it's
cases
bullshit?
it might be.
I think it's not bullshit. Do you think it's bullshit?
In some cases it might be. In some cases it might not be. I'd say for the most part.
Okay, do you think that it probably requires a psychological diagnosis to determine if somebody has PTSD, maybe?
Yes, I would say so.
How do you determine that?
You would go and you would probably see a psychologist, and
Really?
you would get.
And
you
what
would
would the
tell them your
psychologist
symptoms. Am I
ask?
going to answer the question, or are you going to talk over me, First Amendment?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you'd probably, you'd feel some sort of symptoms internally, and then you would go to a psychologist, and then you would speak to them, and they would tell you if this is corroborating with the evidence of what PTSD is and what the symptoms are of that, and then they would tell you that you've got PTSD or you haven't, and then they would treat you for that.
Great. So are you saying that you would rely on a person's self-reported data?
No, I would rely on the evidence, and this actually goes against your point, First Amendment. This is really not good
that's
for you.
literally what the diagnosis is for trans individuals.
Hold up there, fellas. I want to let Taylor in, so go ahead.
Hold on a second, just quickly. If after this debate, this is actually likely to happen, if after this debate, First Amender says to his friends, guys, I've got PTSD because Jake Rattlesnake just destroyed me and he's an illiterate Australian. If that happens, then your friends will probably be like, you probably don't actually have PTSD, First Amendment, even though you did get destroyed in the debate. You're probably just a little bit upset about it. But then if it persisted, and if I was living rent-free in your head for the next 6 months, which is also likely, and you went to a psychologist and they said you actually are displaying the symptoms of PTSD.
I'm going to sleep like a baby and not think about you at all.
You would have PTSD.
I don't know if he's been that rattled, but I hope that that's part of your branding. You've been rattled. Anyways, it'd be kind of funny.
I know Taylor was about.
Taylor was wanting to jump in, but yeah, definitely, Amy, you're next if you got a thought there. So go ahead, Taylor.
Just a very quick question. Dudes, does every trans person have to go through psychological testing to be affirmed? Does every trans person have to receive a diagnosis in order for their identity to be legitimate?
Let's let Amy respond.
If you want Amy to go, I can. That's fine.
Either one.
Sure.
Let's let Amy.
I'd like for that too.
I would say,
thank you.
Honestly, the process starts with a therapist. It is one thing to just self-report into a void. However, I would prefer that people go to a therapist and really suss out, is there something in my past? Oh my God, I didn't even know about. Is there something to the left or to the right that is depression? Something happened, and remove those. And if we have removed all those and what is left is gender dysphoria, then I think you should move on with other options like puberty blockers and hormones. I do want to answer the bullshit question because I think it's one of the biggest pushbacks that our side gets. And I would say that an answer to that, which I would love to have a back and forth, is that it's the morally right answer. And I know without getting too deep into moral ethics, I think that it is the nice and kind thing to do. And I think that it allows allows transgender individuals to easier assimilate, thus allowing them to function better in society.
What's the question? Are we responding to?
Well, I guess I would say the reason why it's not I guess your feelings or thoughts is the reason why it's not bullshit is because it's the morally right thing to do. I would actually put that forward. It is the nice, kind thing to do. And by doing so, it actually is of benefit to society.
But I just reject that. I reject that it's the nice, morally right thing to do. I reject outright that it's the morally right thing to do to affirm somebody's delusion. I also don't think it's nice or kind to do that. So yeah, I reject the premise of that statement.
I guess we would have to talk about why it would fall under delusion territory, because I don't think it's a delusion. I think it's a brain state and a feeling. I think that
a brain state or a feeling, you have to that there's a distinction there.
I'd argue a delusion is a brain state. So
I would agree with you, but in other words, it is someone saying I feel masculine, I feel feminine. I don't think it's a delusion because it's not someone saying that something doesn't exist that corresponds with reality. I think if someone came to you and they said, I changed my chromosomes, you should go look, my chromosomes are completely changed. I think maybe you could say they have a delusion. But if they're saying, look, I didn't change my sex, I just have this label that we call a gender that is this aggregate of properties. It's just easier that you use she, her, or he, them.
Yeah, I mean, just personally, first of all, I reject the premise, like I said before, that it's the morally right thing to do. And second of all, even if a trans person is saying, if you don't say this, if you don't affirm my delusion, then I'm going to off myself, I don't care. So that's another thing. I just don't really care. That's called emotional hostage taking or emotional blackmail. And if people want to emotionally blackmail me, then I don't care what you do.
But can I give you the opposite? Oh, I feel bad, Taylor.
No, go ahead.
I feel bad, but if one were to say to you, look, I'm a Christian. This is what makes me feel good. I just want you to accept me as I am. And the person responds, look, it's a delusion. I just don't accept your identity. And therefore, I'm not going to identify you as a Christian. I'm not.
Yeah, fine.
Right.
I think you'd be rude. I think I'm not saying that people should be forced, but I think you'd be rude in that situation.
Yeah, I might be rude, but I think that's perfectly fine to be rude in that situation. And if a trans person wants to be rude to me, then fine, so be it. I'm still not going to lie to you. So I don't see what the point is there.
Because I wouldn't, at least in a work setting, in a professional setting, I would not tell a Christian that they're delusional. Even if that was my personal feelings, I think being nice and kind to them and respecting their beliefs, if they say Merry Christmas, I just say Merry Christmas back and we go along our way. And I think that, again, I think that is the morally right thing to do. We could talk about, I know you've gone over a little.
So would you affirm that Christianity is true, though?
I would not affirm that Christianity is true, but I would.
Okay, so what if I said to you that if you don't affirm that Christianity is true and that this is a reality, then I will put this gun to my head and I will pull the trigger? Would you do it?
I'd call you a presuppositional apologist that's putting a gun to their head. In that situation, I'll be honest, I think the more moral thing to do in that situation is to lie and to say I believe in Christianity because I don't want you to kill yourself. And in that situation, that is more moral than me having the personal satisfaction of me not just saying, oh, I'll never tell you I'm a Christian or something like that.
So let me give you another hypothetical then. In First Amender, feel free to jump in. I can see your little face there. You want to get in? So if you had a daughter, right, and the daughter had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend, she broke up with the boyfriend, and the boyfriend said, if she doesn't take me back, I'm going to off myself. Would you tell your daughter to take him back, or would you tell your daughter to end the relationship?
you're twisting a serious mental health issue into a manipulative caricature. You're effectively you're being dishonest and cruel.
So you're not going
Affirmation
to answer the question
isn't
again? So you're going to run away
affirmation.
again?
I am answering the question.
So what would you do in that
Affirmation
situation?
isn't giving into demands. It is about recognizing someone's identity in a way that has been scientifically shown to reduce depression, suicide, and self-harm. That's not opinion. That's medical consensus. You
So what
wouldn't
would you
say
do in
that to
situation,
someone.
First Amender?
You wouldn't say to someone with depression, stop being sad or I won't help you. So why do it here? Affirming someone isn't enabling. It is supporting them through real pain.
That's a
Yeah.
false
So
approach.
affirming somebody
No
would
one's
be.
saying they're not going to help people because that's not. That's
Also, as for the question earlier, would you affirm someone who has not been to a psychologist? I said I would. I believe I would affirm them out the gate, as I do not know if they possess gender dysphoria or not. But yes, I would say to talk to a psychologist to confirm if action, if any, is necessary as per WPATH standards of care, evidence based and already very conservative on its basis.
So just back to this now, because First Amender has once again managed to somehow evade my question. Your daughter
Yes,
comes
because
to
it
you,
is a
First
bad faith
Amender.
question.
Your daughter comes to you and says, "My boyfriend, I've broken up with him. He said he's going to off myself if I don't take him back." Does she take him back, or do you let him off himself? What do you do?
Because it is a bad faith question. I'm not going
you're
to
gonna run
answer
away
bad
again.
faith questions.
First Amender, you should sign up for the 100-meter track relay in your local county district, because
I think you should
are
sign up
amazing at
for
running.
debate classes so that way you can actually ask good faith questions.
I think that if anyone who's watching this would be able to see who should sign up for debate classes, or maybe you should just get a more realistic, common sense worldview. So what would you do in that situation then, First Amender? I want you to actually answer this question, because you're just running away like you've done for absolutely
No, because it
everything
is
so
a
far.
bad faith question.
No, this is
Please
emotional
ask a bad.
hostage taking.
Please
This
ask
is
a good
emotional
faith
This is
question.
emotional blackmail. This whole trans identity thing, if we need to affirm their identities because that means that they won't off themselves, that is emotional blackmail. That is
You're
the
living
exact same
off.
thing.
You're living
That is
up
the
to
exact
your
same thing as somebody
your
saying,
name,
if-
Rattlesnake.
yeah.
Again,
Anyways, that's the exact same.
affirmation is
McLovin,
not about
McLovin,
giving in to demands. It's about
McLovin.
recognizing someone's identity
am I
in a
allowed
way that has
to
been
ask a
scientifically
question, or
shown to
am
reduce
I allowed to ask a
depression,
question?
suicide,
He's
and
done a lot of
self-harm.
prattling this whole
Okay,
I've
time.
already
hold
explained it.
on. You
Ryan,
did.
he's done a lot of
You wrapped
prattling.
up your point there, First Amender, and everybody can hear you pretty
Yeah.
loud. If, like I say, if you can maybe tailor back the preamp just a little bit. But yeah, I do want to let you respond there, Jake, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to answer to my question,
go
because
ahead.
it's pretty simple here. He's saying that it's the kind thing to do and it doesn't hurt anybody. And if you affirm trans people's delusions, then they won't off themselves, right? That's the whole premise of his argument here. And I'm saying, well, in this situation, your daughter's dating this guy. He says he's going to off himself if you don't tell her to get back with him. All right. What do? Do you let him off himself, or do you tell the daughter to get back with him?
I have them leave. Now we can move on. Anyway,
Okay. And I would
it's
do
not the
thing.
same.
I would also not
It's-
affirm the emotional blackmail. So we're on the same page here.
Yeah, again, affirmation isn't about giving into demands. It's about recognizing someone's identity.
Yep. So you're giving into the demands, even though you think you don't want to lie because of
It's
this
not a
person's delusion.
demand.
Yeah. So
It's
you
affirming identity.
so it's affirming their personal preference of identity.
No,
so
it's
if
an
I said now,
yes, correct.
Okay,
You have a
so-
personal identity, like you would like to be referred to as a man. It would be pretty disrespectful
far can we
if I
take
went
identity?
against your gender
Right.
Okay.
identity.
fantastic. I get that. All right. Now I want you to call me my lord, because this is my personal identity, McLovin. So call me my lord, or else I could hurt myself in the future. Go.
You are not a lord. You got scammed
Okay.
by a scam company. The
Okay.
difference is that trans
think that
people aren't
transgenders
asked
have
to
been
be
scammed
treated
by
like
TikTok.
nobility. They are asking to be recognized for who they are. So they do not die by suicide, get denied health care, or be dehumanized. You're not oppressed because people do not call you Lord, but trans people are hurt when you refuse their identity. No one is harmed if I don't call you Lord, but we have decades of evidence showing real harm where we do not affirm trans people's identities. That's the difference. This isn't a
Fantastic.
joke for
Well,
them.
I
It's
think
life or
that
death.
trans people have been scammed by TikTok, and they've been scammed by Hollywood, and they've been scammed by
It has
mainstream
nothing to
media
do
and
with
all of these
TikTok or
things,
Hollywood.
and you know, trans lobbies and
Endocrinologically,
the psychological establishment. I think that they've been
1 second.
actually
First
scammed by all of these different entities, and it's actually bullshit. So I'm not going to I'm just using your logic here, by the way, First Amendment. Everything that you're saying can be used in reverse. So yeah, for that reason, I'm not going to affirm what they say. Thank you very much.
Yeah, again, it's not analogous. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like in the next 10 or 20 years, I don't know. Maybe you'll be like that old fuddy-duddy that everybody will look at and be like, you know, you were like that weirdo that didn't affirm people's trans brains or trans identities. You know, I mean, like there's so much empirical basis behind this that it's only a matter of time. The facts are not on your side. And the fact is that none of your arguments have actually any empirical basis whatsoever. And it's just rhetoric. There actually is no real substance. And I think anybody who's even minorly honest with themselves recognizes that.
So you think that I'm going to be the fuddy-duddy who doesn't call big 6'4" Bob wearing a dress ma'am? You think I'm going to be the fuddy-duddy because I don't affirm that?
You're applying a straw man to the argument as opposed to addressing gender identity and as whether or not that affirming somebody does any harm to society or anybody. By the way, still don't have any basis behind that. How exactly does it harm society again? Is it because everybody has to lie and you have to apply some weird slippery slope fallacy where it's like now everybody has to lie to one another?
I think that it's actually inherently just a bad and evil thing to do in order to do emotional blackmail like this, because this is what it is.
What empirical basis do you have?
And it is emotional hostage taking. Yeah, it's my feeling. What's wrong with my feeling? I just feel that way.
Affirming
it's my personal preference.
Yeah, you have a personal preference to being identified as a man. What is that argument?
No. It's my personal preference that I believe it's bad. So what's wrong with my personal preference?
Well, can I respond?
Okay, then have the personal preference. No one is denying you.
Yeah,
then
I do want to let Amy in here.
stand
So
on
hold on there, guys. You're having a
once again,
great
First
back and
Amendment.
forth, and that's going to spur
Another
some
L.
thoughts on the panel. So, Amy, I want to hand it to you.
Thank you so much. I just want to respond to emotional blackmail because it isn't something I don't want anyone to really be forced to use a pronoun or go against their beliefs. I do think that we're dealing with social situations that it's about respect. We don't always start with respect. I think sometimes it is earned. However, I think that is what we are doing in this situation. And I would ask the both of you, let's imagine a hypothetical in which a coworker is using the opposite pronoun. Would you find it offensive? Would you be able to ignore it? Because I ask myself that sort of question, and I think sometimes my answer is we should, and sometimes I think the answer is we should really press for more respect. I guess, what is your answer? If someone came to you and said, you know, I'm going to refer to Jake as a she, I'm going to refer to Taylor as a he. Sure, but let's just imagine they're refusing to pronoun you the right way. They're actually doing it the opposite. Would it make you feel uncomfortable?
No. Yeah. I mean, I have a very strong basis in my identity as a person. I don't need everyone around me to affirm it. If people want to call me whatever they want. So.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody, you're saying if somebody was calling me Jake instead of my lord, or if someone was calling me she instead of he?
Yeah, I would say someone was referring to you as she, her.
As she? Yeah, I would think that person is has a pretty bad grasp on identifying people's characteristics.
Could I say I would actually agree with both of you. I feel like there's a piece, because I've gone through the scenario, it almost never benefits to freak out, get really mad, to start. I've found even sarcasm doesn't really work. You start opposite pronouncing them. And so it's this odd situation where I almost think you are stuck having to accept that someone's not going to respect you. And yet I do think that person is kind of being an asshole.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go on Twitter about it and sort of like try and play the oppression
I
Olympics and be
get
like,
you.
they called me she.
That's
I'm going to off
literally
myself.
all
I
the
wouldn't do
that's
that.
literally
So,
all the right
yeah.
does. They literally do nothing but like make fun of trans people just so they can get clicks.
That's not what the conversation was.
literally
Maybe you weren't
what
listening,
you're
First
doing.
Amender. Maybe you weren't listening, but she was saying if somebody was calling me she, right? So if somebody was calling me she,
I was
then
listening to the
yeah, I'm
conversation. You don't
saying
need
if
to
somebody
repeat
was
it.
calling
Just
me
move on.
she, if somebody was calling me she,
Just move
and I
on.
wouldn't go on Twitter about it, and I wouldn't start crying about it like you guys do, and I wouldn't like spurg out and freak out about it. I would just sort of laugh at them because I think that maybe they've got a bad grasp on the English language.
Or maybe I was just looking fine that day. I don't know. I can't help it sometimes. Now, if you guys wanted to continue on with some open discussion, we can do that. We can talk about, some of the more common topics that come up in here, such as I know that sports, trans people in sports is generally a topic that people want to touch on before we get to the Q&A. I know we might not have had a chance for that, and maybe that's not important to you guys, but maybe you guys can add some clarity or dispel potential hysteria. So I want to maybe give a chance for you guys to give your thoughts on where we're at with that.
As in trans people in sport?
Yeah, let's start over with you, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, sport should be allocated into the biological sexes, and we can see the damage that it does when it's not. Obviously, in boxing, I've done boxing for the last 10 years. I've competed in boxing, and I know that I would absolutely fuck any woman up if she tried to get in the ring with me. It would not be competitive whatsoever, even the best female boxers in the world. So if men obviously have a distinct biological advantage there. And we saw this recently with Khalifi in the Olympics, who is a verified man, was going and bashing the skulls of women in, and there's no universe in which that is okay. The only good thing about it is that it like might ruin women's sport, which sucks.
All right. Do you want to respond there first, Amy, or are you feeling like chomping there first?
Well, I will say that at least in Olive Branch, I think the sports issue of all of the transgender things is the most difficult because there's so many different parameters and factors. Sometimes you're going to have hormone levels be a good way that we can move people forward. Sometimes we're going to have weight categories. I think when we're talking about sports, we're dealing with very specifically fairness. We're asking it, are the people in this category fair? Is it a good competition where the people are going to come out as we think the accurate winners? I think that's going to be hard as we have to look at each individual sport, and we're going to just have to make determining factors. My joke is sports of all of these is the most first world because we're clearly dealing with people trying to have a good time. However, scholarships are involved, other factors. I'm going to keep on trying to find some sort of universal design, which is where everyone wins. And that generally is when the categories are match fair. Sometimes means not having transgenders. Sometimes it means having ways in which transgenders can join. You're going to have to play it sport by sport basis.
All right. Yeah, let's let Taylor have a response here, and then first, if you want to give your final thoughts there, we'll let you have the last words. So,
regarding
yeah.
trans sports.
Yeah, regarding where we're at with that
Okay.
conversation. So we'll let Taylor respond first if you have any thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, I basically would just parrot Jake. I mean, we should just, it should be based on sex. It's only fair. I mean, even the strongest woman versus the weakest man. Like, I wouldn't want to be in any sort of boxing ring with any sort of man. Women deserve spaces to compete and be successful. So there you go.
All right. First Mender, your thoughts, and then we'll get into some more open discussion if we have any more left to provide to the audience before the Q&A. Once again, get your super chats in there, guys. We've got all kinds. It's going to be a great Q&A from the looks of things already. We don't want to miss your question, though, if you have one, so get it in there. Once again, we have First Amender here, Taylor, Jake, Rattlesnake, and Amy Newman. Thank you, everybody, for having the great discussion, and we're going to keep going for, well, as long as these guys want to keep rolling. So, First Amender, your thoughts on this whole discussion here?
Yeah, when it came to sports, I felt like that there were certain sports that are probably not appropriate for trans women due to innate differences that would make them better, such as bone density as well as muscle fiber, even with gender affirming therapy. But as I thought about it further, Emain Keleff is actually a fabulous example, possessing actually no medical evidence that they have XY chromosomes or elevated levels of testosterone have ever been published about them. However, there had been frequent misinformation surfacing on social media about her gender and eligibility to complete or to compete. False claims that Keleff was male was fueled by Keleff's disqualification from the 2023 Women's World Boxing Championships, which was organized by the Russian-led International Boxing Association after she allegedly failed unspecified gender eligibility tests. However, the International Olympic Committee, as well as the Paris Boxing Unit, did state that Keleff was eligible to compete. And so the IBA's previous disqualification was effectively sudden and arbitrary and taken without any due process. What's interesting is that there are biological women that possess excess levels of testosterone. This is more common than you think. And if they possess these excess levels of testosterone at an early age, then they effectively have more man-like conditions. And one thing that happens to these people is that when they end up competing, they actually end up crushing women's championships. Another good example is Caster Semenya. And what I find interesting about this is that, well, if you think about what sports are and what it means to be really, really good at a sport, number one, you're very good at a particular skill. You're skilled at it, and you probably have some sort of genetic predisposition that allows you to be better at that particular activity. Usain Bolt would probably possess some sort of genetic abnormality that would make them much, much faster. And then that would also be the case with Shaq regarding his gargantuan size in comparison to other players. We tend to celebrate these differences, especially if that impacts their performance in a positive way. And I see, so if it's possible for a biological woman to take advantage of their excess testosterone in a particular sport, then why not trans women?
Yeah, that'll never happen.
All right.
Women who are born females are never going to be going and competing in any sort of like heavy duty sports against men. They're never going to be able to compete in boxing, weightlifting, any of these types of things. But it does happen on the reverse. So First Amender, is your position that if I wanted to, then I could go and box against women in my weight division tomorrow?
In the same weight division as women?
Yeah.
I think I think looking at testosterone levels would be necessary as a part of gender testing. So likely that they would require you to get a certain level of testosterone in order to join. That would probably be my position. Sure.
So if I just lowered my testosterone a little bit, then you would be fine with me going and beating the shit out of a woman?
I don't believe that you'd beat the shit out of a woman. I don't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'd suggest that you maybe go and get yourself in a boxing gym at some point, First Amender, because there's a very, very big difference in terms of how men and women fight. Do
Okay.
you not know that?
I'm sure there is.
There is? But you'd
Yeah.
be happy for me to go and crush the skull of a woman.
Well,
Small-
just
the
so you're
smaller
aware,
skull.
those injuries that Emain Keleff had provided is very common injuries that occur even in the women's division. So
I'm talking
I don't know where you're getting the idea that
don't worry about Emain.
somehow Emain was somehow crushing the skulls in. And I think if you lacked testosterone, you would definitely lose muscle mass and your performance would drop drastically.
Right. So you think that if I had the similar sort of testosterone levels to yourself, for example, and then I was
This is
like
a
similar to
personal
a woman,
attack, not
similar
an
to a
actual
woman's
argument. Provide an
testosterone,
actual
similar-
argument without
you
a
know, I
personal
am.
attack, please.
If I lowered my
Yeah,
testosterone,
can you do it without the personal
if I
attack?
did lower
I'd
my
appreciate it.
testosterone, your position is that with all of my biological structure, that there would be no advantage that I would have over a biological woman who weighs the same as me. Say like a tuck shop lady who's just fat, so she weighs the same as me.
Yeah, again, if you are taking testosterone suppressants, you would indeed become a lot smaller.
Do you have any idea how ridiculous that sounds? My
No, it
fist,
doesn't.
I have a big fist, First Amender. My big fist
Yeah, do you
punching
think
the
women
face
can't have
of a
big
small
fist?
woman's skull. You think that is a fair fight? Do you have any idea how ridiculous that is?
I've already answered. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
You think that
I
you're
mean,
doing, you think that you're like doing social justice here, but you're arguing
I'm
First
not.
Amendment for a man to be able
I'm just
to
arguing
bash
like
a woman.
where I can
Why are you
logically go
arguing for
to.
men to be able to beat women up?
I'm not arguing for men to beat women up. I'm
That's what you just
arguing for the
argued.
inclusion of all individuals in society, which includes trans individuals. That's what I'm arguing.
Yeah. Well, let me argue from a position of authority here, then, First Amendment, because clearly you've never stepped foot in any sort of martial arts environment. There is a massive difference. Like I said before, I'm like
I
an
never
amateur level. I'm
disagreed
an
that
amateur
there
level
isn't a
fighter,
massive difference
and
between
I
men and
would
women in
beat
sports.
the absolute brakes off of the best professional woman in the world without a single issue.
If you take
So
2 years of estrogen and testosterone blockers,
yeah, I've still got. I've still.
you think
I've
that
still
you'd
got a-
be
I've
this
still got a bigger
giant
bone
dude
structure. I've
after
still
2
got
years
big
of that?
hands. Yeah,
I got
I'd
news
be
for you,
bigger and
man. You'd
stronger
look
than
like a
them.
woman in 2 years. Your
Nope, I'd
beard
still
would
have.
disappear.
I would
Your
still.
muscles would disappear.
What about my bone structure? What would happen with that?
It would maintain the same. However, you would
So I'd
still
still
go
have a
up
massive,
against
dense
people who
bone
have
structure.
naturally higher testosterone, and you would be at that level. Yes.
I would. I can agree that muscular wise and frame wise, I would probably look a little bit more like yourself. I would probably be.
Can you
sort
please
of
just
shrink down a
refrain
little
from
bit?
the personal attacks? Like, I want
I'm
to
just pointing out
genuinely
an
have a
objective reality.
conversation,
I'm
and I
pointing
just
out a
don't
reality.
appreciate the personal
All right.
attacks.
I'm
It's
You
not
pointing
guys
out a
are
relevant
getting
reality.
to an
derailed.
actual
I can
debate.
see. I can see Taylor has a thought here. So if you don't, okay. I was gonna say you're
I
kind of
mean,
making a
just
face
letting
there
them
for
go.
a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like a good point was made by Jake that we kind of skimmed over. Like, you don't see it on the other side. Why aren't women rushing into like men's sports? And I think it's the same with the bathroom argument. You often see it with the trans women trying to get into the women's bathroom, not trans men trying to get into the men's room. So I think that just speaks to the problem here. That clearly
There are actually
advantage of
there are trans men going into men's sports.
okay, but clearly there's a bias one way, and there's a clear
I
reason.
mean, you can look at Schuyler Bylar. There's Chris Mosier. There's Patricio
Women don't
Manuel. There's
want
Jay
men in their sports.
Malucha.
Tell
Well,
us about them,
I'm
First
just,
Amendment.
you
Tell us
said
about them,
we're
First
not
Amendment.
seeing that. However, we are
Those
seeing
names.
that.
Tell
That
us
does
about them, First
exist.
Amendment. Tell us about
What?
those people.
Are
Tell us
you
about them.
Schuller?
Yeah, tell them. Tell us. Who are they?
That was like the first publicly documented NCAA trans man to complete in men's swim team. There
As
was
it was a long distance swimming.
what I believe they joined the Harvard men's squad after transitioning.
So a woman joined the Harvard men's squad. And who are the
yeah,
other
yeah.
ones? Who are the other ones? Give me a bit of background.
Chris Mosier.
Yeah, what does he do?
They're a triathlete and a duathlete.
So a triathlete in like a multi-sex sport, or
Well, they're in U.S. national teams at a men's event, and they successfully challenged the IOC rules to allow transgender participation.
right. So this is a biological woman that is competing at the national level for men's track.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you spell the name?
Chris Mosier, ChrisMosier.
All right. Go on. Who are the other ones?
There's Patricio Manuel.
And what do they do?
They're the first trans man to fight professionally in a men's boxing match.
What was the record?
Was there a record?
Yeah.
Are you asking for?
What
I
was
don't
their
know if they have
record?
a record or not. I don't watch sports.
Oh, well, goes to show.
I-
Anyways, we don't see the same sort of infiltration.
I
of
don't
sports.
know
We don't
why-
see them at the Olympic level.
I don't know why you're
we see
doing this personal
trans women-
attacks.
We see trans
This
people who
this says
transition
more
to
about
becoming
you
women
than
at
it
the
does
Olympic
to me.
level.
Like, you're asking all these pointed questions. I'm providing you relevant empirical data,
Yeah, I
and
don't see a
your
single
response
Olympic
is to
athlete
just
here.
make fun of me. It's not really an argument.
When did I actually didn't make fun of you just then. I refrained from it. So where are the Olympic athletes that were born biological females that have gone on to become Olympic athletes or Olympic champions in the men's?
I'm not sure.
But I would also say the same problems are present. So, although the focus, especially on the media, is definitely on trans women, there are trans men that want to go into sports competitions,
I
and
need
they
to pee,
are
I'm gonna be right back.
met with two different, I would say, groups. There are some that say, well, they are females, let them just fight with females. It doesn't matter that they have a beard and are now bigger. And others who would say, well, hey, they are in essence using steroids. So why should I let this person who's using steroids up against a biological woman? That's why I think it's such a complicated issue, and why there is going to be many factors that maybe determine fairness. Why some sports, sometimes when we're dealing with like swimming, where it may actually be that a leaner frame actually has some sort of advantage. That's not going to be for every sport. However, as long as we're trying to find what I think is the metric of fairness, we're going to come out with a more universally acceptable system. Might take us a little while.
All right. Did you have a response to it, Taylor? I think that First
No,
Amendment.
I mean, my opinion stays the same. Like biological sex, sports, I don't care that much about this issue, but it just seems very clear to me. So, yeah.
I know they're trying to make us care about sports.
Yeah, don't care about sports.
All right. Well,
I care, but not enough.
All right. Well,
Feel the same way.
Very good. Yeah. No, I'm not a big sports person either, so that's why I had to frame it the way I did. I have no idea, if this is just, like I said, is it a problem? Is it just hysteria? What's going on? The other thing that I guess if you guys wanted to touch on, some of the talk about, trans in the military, and the.
Are we
identities
done
in the
with that
military.
sports topic?
Yeah, I think we're gonna move on. If that's all right by yourselves.
I was just quickly, I just wanted to say, we asked about all those athletes before, all of the alleged, biological women who went into men's sport. Absolutely none of them at the top levels of Olympics. However, the other side, you see biological men transitioning to become women and then making it to the top of the Olympics. Why is that? Why is it that there are none? Why is it none of that is happening in the reverse? Is that because maybe men have a biological advantage physically?
So I just want to be clear, right? I mean, I agree with you. There's likely a biological advantage. I'd never disagreed with that. But I'm going to ask you this. If there were, would you affirm trans identities?
What do you mean?
If there was a trans man that performed at the top levels in Olympic sports, would you affirm trans identities?
No.
Okay, so this question doesn't matter. Cool.
No, I'm just pointing because the question actually points to the absurdity of what you're saying. And now you're giving me an impossible hypothetical and acting like that somehow refutes what I'm saying. No,
is that kind of like what you did?
Affirm that they're a man. But the evidence actually
that's
points
literally
in that direction,
I love that. I do love the projection. It's really fabulous.
What's projection about it?
The point is
you just projected the exact thing you did this entire debate towards me.
First Amendment, you've been asking us this whole time about proof that there's like a societal decline with affirming the identities, and we're just giving you one. Like women are losing out on sports.
So let me get this straight. Trans women get included in sports, which, by the way, right, just to point out, across all sports, it's suspected anywhere around 200 total. That we're talking like from high school all the way to professional league, there's a total of 200. Okay, so knowing that there are 200 trans individuals joining in sports, then society collapses. Why don't you take me through the steps, how exactly that works?
Let's talk about
how does society collapse?
If we keep affirming identities, then there'll be more than 200, and that doesn't matter.
More than 200.
We're talking about just how we operate as a society and how we separate people and how we define people, and that the spaces that women have fought for years. And I assume you're some sort of feminist as a leftist, so you should care about this.
So more than 200 women fought for spaces. Then what?
Why don't you let her answer?
Do you care about what women think about these issues?
I do.
Okay, and what
sure
if most women were against trans people in sports? Would you?
Ooh, hot take. You know what? Most women don't feel that way,
That's
but okay. Anyway, so now so more than 200, then women. No. I want to understand your position. I'm saying more than 200. It doesn't matter. No study I'm going to show you matters because I've presented studies, and then you say, well, I don't care about the studies. So it doesn't matter what I send you. Anyway, so if there's more than 200.
This actually is based on feelings.
So you would say that there's more than, shut up. You had
No,
said that
First
there is
Amender. If
more
you
than
gave us some
200. Can
studies
I
on
get
this
a
that actually
mute on
would be
this guy?
relevant.
Like, I can't say anything without him
You've been
freaking
saying a
out.
lot.
Hold on.
You've
This
been
is
saying
this
a
is
lot.
very this has been a lot of fun having the back and forth here. But yeah, let's give First Amender a little space here so he can flesh out his thought, and then I'll definitely give you a chance to respond. We were going to move on to some of the changes to the military regarding the subject, but we can talk about that in a few minutes. I'll let you guys. Yeah, you can
Okay,
segue naturally.
so
Go ahead.
societal collapse because trans women in sports. Okay, so you said, okay, there would be more than 200 women fought for those spaces. Okay, get me to societal collapse. Show me.
The point is that if we as a society cannot define man and women and truth and untruth, then the society does not thrive. And that
So,
I'm
so if you
asking
can't define,
I'm
stop,
asking you to grapple. You talk for so long, please. You talk for so long. You
But
asked me,
that you just made a jump. You just
there's
jumped.
no jump. There's no
You
jump.
said
What
you
is
can't. Yeah, I'll explain the jump. You can't define women, and then society collapse. I don't exactly understand. Again,
is
it
that what I
doesn't make
said?
any
Is
sense.
that what I said? No.
It's a
Yes, you
straw
did.
man.
Go ahead. Then, okay, explain it. Explain it to me.
asking
How
you
does
to
society
grapple-
collapse?
I'm asking you to grapple with your hypocrisy in your own worldview. I'm saying that you say you care what women think about. You claim to be some sort of feminist, and I'm telling you that even if it's 200 spots that are being taken from women that worked hard to get there by biological men that come in because it's the easier route to go, that should matter. And I'm telling you that the more you affirm these identities, the more that number will rise. It should matter.
Okay, so assuming there's more than 200 women fought for spaces, we can't define women, then society collapse. How does society collapse?
She
If
never
we-
said that. She said it's corrosive.
No,
Right, I'm saying that
stop,
it's not-
stop. You said
I did not
society
say
would
that
collapse.
Society collapses. I'm
Yes,
saying
I
you've
wrote
asked
down
us-
exactly
I'm
what you
saying
said. You
you've
said
asked us-
society would collapse. I
I'm
wrote down
saying,
exactly
fine,
what you
whatever
said.
I said.
So will society collapse if we affirm
You
trans
have
people?
asked
And
us
if
All right,
so,
we-
get me to that point.
All right, to
You
be
have asked us-
fair.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say, just to be fair, I'm just gonna place you on a brief mute there, First Amender, just so we can get some of the thoughts out here in response. Just because, yeah, it's just a little bit too much jumping back and forth, and the mic is still a little bit hot on your end. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that, but I'm not trying to call you out or anything like that. It's just audio stuff, guys. All right, so over to you, Taylor. I want to let have some space to get your thoughts out.
You've asked us this entire time, what is the problem with affirming trans identities, and what is the societal harm? I've pointed out several examples. Now we're talking about sports. I'm giving you a specific societal harm that people are suffering because we are affirming these identities. That is a simple jump to make. That's it. And that the more that we affirm identities and the more that the spaces open up to biological men, that biological women will suffer. If we cannot agree on what a biological man is and what a biological woman is, then definitions mean nothing, spaces mean nothing, and people will suffer. That's it. It's so simple. You're muted.
Yes, you can take yourself off mute. That is fine. I also want to give Amy space. To
That's
love the
another
mute, Berg.
that's
If you
another
would like.
slippery slope
It's
argument.
not. It's literally
You're
happening.
saying that
There's no
you're saying
slippery slope.
if you're
Hold on,
saying
it's
that
his turn.
if you affirm trans women, then all of a sudden definitions mean nothing. No, it just means there's an additional definition. If I say the word,
You have no
there-
definition.
I really do. If there
love
is if I say the word bat, what am I referring to? Am I referring to the tool that is being used for baseball, or am I referring to the mammal that screeches and can't see and flies around at night?
And yet
Like,
there's clear definitions for both
like
of those things.
obviously me adding a definition to woman where it's like the gender identity of female, that's not an issue. That should not be an issue, and nor does that make
And yet-
society fall apart, and it doesn't turn society into a sophistry, I don't know, nightmare paradigm where up is down and down is up. That's not how that
First
works.
Amender, actually, if you want to try and call her out for doing slippery slopes, yours is a slippery slope fallacy in and of itself, because you're saying that if we don't affirm trans people's identities, then they're all just going to off themselves. First of all,
But there's
don't really care.
empirical basis behind that.
But second of all, it's just I reject your empirical basis.
Yeah, you
Yeah, I
reject
reject
the
that that's a good
entire
thing to do.
medical institutions.
No.
Yes,
I reject.
yes, you
I
do
reject
in fact
that
do
is
that.
a better thing to
right?
do. Than
I'm
to not
curious if
affirm
you
the
ever
identities.
end up with a heart attack that whether or not that you go to the hospital, or do you just like, I don't know, just talk to your right wing buddies as to how to like cure your like your hospital condition? Like what would you do? Obviously, you're going to trust the medical institutions, but for whatever reason, this particular topic, you don't trust the medical institution. It's nonsense.
Okay, so what if I told you that I was having a heart attack right now? Would you believe me?
No.
But what if I felt like I'm having a heart attack? If it's my preference,
Dude, if you told me you felt like you were having a heart attack, yeah, I would tell you dial 911.
yeah.
Yeah.
What if I said that what if I said that I felt like I was having a heart attack because my toenail hurts?
Huh, I know. I would say dial 911.
So would you believe me? Well, would you say?
Yeah,
okay, it
yeah.
sounds
If
like you're
someone
having a-
told
it
me,
sounds like
I
you're
feel
having a
like I
heart
wouldn't
attack.
doubt them. Are you stupid?
Okay.
No.
What if I said that I feel like I'm having a heart attack because my brother's toenail hurts?
Dude, I would be like, okay, they're being delusional. And then I
Okay,
would say,
there you
okay,
go.
let's call the 911. Like,
There you go.
dude, like if someone feels like if they tell you they feel like they're having a heart attack, 100%, I would absolutely call 911. Yeah. Are you
And then
Yeah,
if
kidding?
they
and then-
got to the hospital and they said to the doctor, "Oh, I'm having a heart attack. My toenail hurts." And then they did all the things that you do for a heart attack, and they gave them treatment for a heart attack, and they opened up their chest and they fixed their heart. Would that be the correct method of treatment because their toenail hurt with no other evidence and no other anything?
Well, usually what they do is that they connect them to an EKG machine and to determine what's going
Okay,
on.
but what if they just said that's it? It doesn't matter. I
If
still feel like
nothing's
I'm having
going
a heart
on, then
attack. I
nothing is
still feel like
going
I'm
on.
having
But
a heart
they
attack.
went and
Right,
they
but
found they got
there is
to a medical
objective
professional.
basis. There's an objective
Correct. That's
basis.
also true regarding trans individuals and the
No,
WPATH
it's not.
standards. You
No,
did
it's
it.
not,
Look at
because-
you.
No, it's not, First Amendment. Because
Yes,
if we went to the doctor and we said we're
yes,
having a heart attack because
yes.
I've got I know you're
Oh
scared.
my God.
If we said I feel like I'm having a heart attack because my toenail hurts, the doctor says you're not having a heart attack, but I say no,
Holy
I feel like
shit.
I'm still having a heart attack. I am having a heart attack.
Oh my
Would you affirm
God.
that I'm having a heart attack? Well, no, because there actually is an empirical
Who
basis.
does this?
However, if you were said that I'm trans and you went to a psychologist and said that you're not trans, but then you came back home and said, no, I still feel like I'm trans, you would affirm them First Amender. So there you go. There it is.
All right,
Good one.
let us move
He's
on.
scared.
If you guys would
Again.
like to move into that,
It's just more
final-
bad faith arguments. It's just it's
I think
stupid.
I
It's
think I
just
actually
pure
just dismantled your
stupidity.
entire argument.
Well,
I think
No,
that's might
it's
be what
just pure
happened.
stupidity.
I think
If I
that's what
just
just happened.
present this completely disanalogous thing that's super absurd, then is it true? I'm not
Oh.
talking about that. I'm talking about something that can be empirically verified.
All right.
Why would I sit there and address some stupid straw man of an argument
would ask-
instead of an actual argument?
I would
At
ask
least
just kind of
Taylor's
empirically
doing
verified by
somewhat
your
of a good
feelings.
job.
I would just
Could
ask
I
kindly.
address
empirically
that?
verified by
Hold
And then I
on,
want to.
hold on to I'm just going to meet the two gents there. I hope you understand. I do want to let Amy in here before we move on to any other subjects, if you would like. So,
Absolutely. So I think I want to address that, and then I also have a thought about the trans military, because it is true that someone could come to you and say, "Look, I am feeling like I have a heart attack." I think when it comes to something like that, self-reporting would be where we begin. I think it would move towards an empirical, objective basis once we get to a doctor, because now we're trying to suss out whether their feelings actually correspond with reality. I think that being trans is closer to a favorite color of or a favorite type of ice cream, in that it really is how we feel about something. Someone likes to do X, Y, and Z. That tends to correspond more with femininity. So we put them in the feminine bucket, or masculinity, masculine bucket. But what I would also add on there is I would say the military, along with gay marriage, those are two things that we pushed for the LGBT community in the past few decades. I think that I have actually been very proud of the West. I think that it has become increasingly more inclusive society. We should celebrate those gains. I think the military is one of the largest employers of transgender people. I know it's a political football right now. It gets kind of sent back and forth, but I am very proud not only of our country, of the West, but of our military, of the transgender people that have decided that they want to patriotically defend their country. I feel the same way of straight biological people. that want to defend their country. And I think it's something we should support, be thankful of. Sometimes it always just feels empty to say thank you for your service. I think we should do even better, support things like VA rights. But I think any person, as long as they are able-bodied, I know that might be maybe where we're kind of a point of contention, that wants to sign up and defend their country, I think that's an amazing thing.
All right, let's get into that point there. So I didn't mean to be sharing the live chat there. You guys behave yourself over there. Let's hand it over to Jake if you want to respond to some of those points there.
I'll let Taylor go first with this one.
Sure thing. All right. go
Sure,
ahead.
sorry. I would say that typically mental illness disqualifies people from the military. I would say that if we're going to go on the argument that, like, if we don't affirm people, then they're at risk for suicide, I imagine the military, there may be risk of not affirming identities. I think it's a stressful job. I feel like if people have underlying issues, mental health issues, no, they should not be serving in the military.
Yep, I'd agree with everything Taylor just said there. And yeah, it's one of those jobs where you do need to be mentally sound as possible. So having people with mental illness would not be a good thing, especially if you're giving them guns.
I do one point of just pushback, which what I would say, it's true that there is a high attempt rate within the transgender community. I would say that's more a symptom of them wanting to find outreach, and that once they actually transition, they tend to be very mentally healthy, functional people that I think we could find worthy of active service.
All right.
Yeah, I disagree, but yeah.
All right. Any thoughts on this whole conversation there, First Amender?
Yeah,
that there's been some changes, I think, or at least that's what I'm been led to believe. I mean, I'm elsewhere in the world, but there's been some changes recently to this whole structure. So I do want some
Yeah,
thoughts there. if you have
they
any.
banned it based on Pete Hegseth. It's actually kind of a shame because I've read his book on regarding military readiness, and he extended this as well to women. Unfortunately, the reality is that your modern military is not all front servicemen that need to carry a 60-pound pack. Trans service people, it has exhibited itself that the U.S. Department of Defense's own studies had found that transgender service members have had a minimal impact on readiness as well as cost. And the U.S. military currently allows trans people to serve openly, with policies updated since January of 2021. But it had, of course, had been denied by Pete Hegseth, which is really a shame. The AMA and the APA, the American Psychological Association, and other medical bodies support the rights of trans individuals and serve to affirm transition-related care. It does not impair military duty. So there are multiple different areas of expertise that was able to exhibit no issues regarding a trans person being able to serve.
Yeah, I think I just grant most of that. I mean, sure, maybe in some sort of support roles, but I think I'd agree with First Amender when he says don't let the trans near the guns, and make sure that yeah, they don't have access to those weapons. But if there's some sort of a support role that they could play, then sure. And also don't use the American taxpayer dollar to chop the penis of various different men off, or the other way around.
It's just referring to medical care of why no cosmetic surgery is provided by the military. So you be free to sleep very nicely on your bed tonight, knowing that the military is not paying for any bottom surgery.
Okay, well, I also think the military and the taxpayer shouldn't pay for any sort of gender affirming care whatsoever. So that'll make me sleep nicely.
It's just medical care in general. Like they just
Yeah.
pay for medical care.
Yeah, well, I disagree with that.
All right. Let us wait potentially here, unless Taylor, you want to jump in here on all this. Let's wait till Amy gets back, and let's jump into the Q&A. Get what the audience is getting.
I
out of
just
this
will say
here.
that I do have to head out soon, Ryan, because
Yeah.
I'm going to a water park today with my little cousins, and I'm definitely not above a water slide, even though I'm nearly 30 years old.
Nearly 30.
Ooh.
Lucky
Mhm.
you. Oh no. I feel old all of a sudden, everybody. Oh no. All right. So yeah, definitely thank you everybody who's still watching on the live stream. Thank you everybody who's yeah, smash the like button. If not for me, do it for Maple over here. She's too sweet. She's just keeping me company here. That's why I had to lower my camera at one point, because I noticed that I was moving my arm, and I was I was like, the live chat's gonna think I'm really liking this discussion. All right. All right. Oh, you guys are allowed to like the stream and maybe not like it that much, okay? And if you do, keep that to yourself. You'll weird us out as much as I just did you. All right. So Emperor Fat Ass Dogs asked the first question there, guys. We're gonna get right into that Q&A. So, big reminder to everybody watching right now: if you have a question, get it into a super chat right now. We're gonna be reading those live on air. And I have the means to put them on screen. Somebody asked if I could do that. I'm not against that. So I'm just going to adjust this right quick so our audience can see your question and your silly name, Emperor Fat Ass Dogs. All right. First question there, Emperor Fat Ass Dogs. First Amender believes in multiple genders, yet manifest destiny is where he draws the line. Make that make sense. Question for you.
Yeah, he argued in a previous debate, arguing in favor of manifest destiny, genocide. Yeah, I'm against genocide. I'm also in favor of affirming trans identities, not just from a moral perspective, but from an empirical one. And so I think that that is logically congruent with being against manifest destiny.
All right. Is there any contention on the panel, or do you want to carry on?
Carry on.
Let us do so. Thank you so much for your questions there, everybody. Let us do get that next question up. 1 second as I scroll into it, and I will put that on screen for y'all. So Brandon Worrell asks, Lord is a title, not an identity.
I say it's an identity. I say it is deeply, deeply ingrained within my identity. And it actually does affect me in many different ways in terms of my social status and my class, and it's actually a part of my name. So I'd say it really does affect me in my identity. And I actually appreciate Amy being good faith and being logically consistent, actually, with her standards and affirming my lordship. First Amender, not so much, but not everybody is consistent, really.
All right. Do you feel that's a fair assessment there, First Amender? If you,
Of course not.
all right. What would be the major thing that you feel maybe has been misconstrued throughout this debate?
Well, this entire debate, right? They have provided actually no evidence whatsoever, just their own feelings. They've
What's wrong with that?
discounted they've discounted all of the relevant studies by just saying, "Well, I'm not reading all those studies. Doesn't matter how many studies." Admitting that just tells me that obviously they're not in good faith. They just want to deny trans people because that is what is in vogue.
What's wrong with it just being about my feelings, though? What's wrong with that?
Because I suppose your feelings of being an asshole are slightly more invalid than a person just trying to live out their life. That's why.
Even if I just grant to you that I am an asshole and my feelings, they don't align with your personal preferences, what's wrong with actually just my personal preference and my feeling that what you're saying is untrue without any sort of justification? What's wrong with
because
that?
these people are just because me personally, when I get up out of bed and I walk around and talk to people, I try not to be an asshole. I know that's not what you seem to want to do. And I don't find it to be socially cohesive to get up out of bed and decide I'm going to be an asshole today for money.
Sweet. I mean, I don't find it socially cohesive for somebody to get up out of bed and say, you know what, I'm going to be a woman and call me ma'am. What's
Okay.
wrong with my preference?
Yeah, you're doing the asshole thing again, as opposed to like
Because I'm
addressing someone's actual
mean.
identity.
Okay, so your argument is that I'm mean. Good one. All right, we can move on.
All right, I gotta be careful with this live chat thing. You see, I'm not used to that. I'll have to take it off the screen if I can remember before I scroll through to make sure y'all are behaving yourselves. But so far, it just looks like everybody's having a good time. So I'll check in again in a more responsible manner. I promise I'll do better. All right, Cindy. Bondbury says, if genetics/genitalia are what makes a man, will you tell your son he is less of a man as if he is born without a genitalia? I will say, if you want
It's
to,
definitely a question for Jake and Taylor.
yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to try jumping on that one, Jake, if genetics and genitalia are what makes a man, will you tell your son he's less of a man if he's born without a genitalia?
No, I would say that it's you generally have reproductive pathways. But yeah, I mean, somebody who is has testicular cancer can be considered intersex. But I would say that if you have these sort of different, like women, there are various different women who can't have children for various different reasons. If they have cancer, they can have their ovaries removed, and it doesn't make them any less of a woman or less of a man.
Someone with testicular cancer can be intersex?
Yeah, if they get their
Where did you
testicles
get
removed.
that?
If they can get their testicles removed.
Dude,
yeah.
that is not what intersex is. Holy crap. You actually have no idea what you're talking about.
What is intersex then?
Intersex is something that causes that happens at an embryonic stage. It's not cancer. It's not like if you remove your testicles, that doesn't make you intersex. Do you understand that?
So testicular cancer can occur in individuals with intersex variation, though it's more common in the overall population. So it's more synonymous with people who are intersex.
Yeah, no, again, you're not addressing what again, that's, yeah, you're reading the Chat GPT thing. Having testicular cancer does not make you intersex.
All right. Well, then address the
Oh
other.
my God.
Address the other
Holy
point.
crap.
Then,
I'm actually talking to
Okay, so,
somebody
yeah,
who's
all
done
right.
zero reading on the topic. Holy
All right, cool.
crap.
Even if I
Dude,
just
holy
granted, even if
crap.
all
What
right,
was
First
that?
Amendment. Wow, you finally did
Oh my
something. Good on your First
God.
Amendment.
Oh
Good on
my
your First Amendment. You
God.
finally did
He
something.
actually
So address
hasn't
the other
read a
part.
single thing on
Address
this
the other part
topic.
then.
He doesn't
Address
know
the other part
anything.
then.
Oh my
Address the other part,
God.
McLovin. McLovin. Address the argument then.
I did. You have no idea what you're
Okay.
talking about.
So then the other part of my okay, so he's gonna walk away.
I can hear you.
Well, finally, he thinks he's got something between
was
his
silly.
teeth.
I'm sorry,
It's
that
just
got me.
funny. It's just fun. I'm getting a water. I'm sorry. I like drinking water while I debate.
You
My
guys-
my voice was cracking. So I
You
needed
guys were
water.
right at, and you're in the background. Just I didn't know if you were singing or if your voice was cracking.
No, I can
go
hear
ahead,
when
go ahead there,
yeah.
Jake. We didn't mean to cut you off. I just
Yeah, I was just saying that women who have men who have no testicles, they're not any less of a man. Women who have no ovaries because they've had cancer and they've had them removed, it wouldn't make them less of a man, less of a woman, etc.
All right. I think we will ask the next super chat from the same individual. So it's up on screen right now. Taylor, prove a trans internal perception is wrong because a trans person is telling you their gender, not their sex, which has always been defined as what you feel you are. I'm putting them on the screen, everybody, so get them in. Go ahead, Taylor.
I just reject that definition of gender. That is just always been an internal perception of what you are. So I can't really, answer the question because I just reject outright the premise of gender. I think gender is just a synonym for sex, and that's always what it's been. And the burden of proof would be on the person claiming to be something that they are not, which I have objective reality on my side.
Get ready there, Amy. I'm going to call on you to jump in.
I would love
here.
to mention in on that as well.
For sure, but I haven't heard from Amy too much from the Q&A so far, so I'd like to ask if you can kind of help clarify here for the people in the audience where we're at with this discussion.
Sure. So I think that it is less to deal. The question was about Jeanette. Can you read the question one more time?
Yeah. So Taylor, prove a trans internal perception is wrong because a trans person is telling you their gender, not sex, which has always been defined as what you feel you are. And Taylor
Sure.
basically expressed that she doesn't feel that there's a need for a distinction, I think, between those terms, if that's fair to say, Taylor.
So this is another point of, I would say, contention from the other side. I'm paraphrasing, but Taylor said something like 2 seconds ago. It is valid that it is a newer frontier, I would say, of social science. I would push back lightly. I would say it's decades at this point, and that it is okay to be a newer frontier of the social science. I think that there's good reason for that, that it came at a point when we were starting to look at different ways of living differently. This is when we started to not treat being gay like a mental illness or a delusion. And while it's not the same thing, it is still the same trajectory that psychologists and sociologists within the past few decades have been using sex and gender differently, because there does seem to be this separation between someone's sex, what is unchangeable, and then gender identity, which I would argue is not an objective thing, is a subjective thing. And thus we are going to be more stuck with people having to tell us their personal experiences.
All right, I'll give you a chance to respond there, Taylor, about the deviation of terms that Amy's trying to highlight there.
Yeah, I think just my original point stands. I don't really see a consistent definition about gender just in general from the side, so I can't really, interact with the term. I think that a personal feeling is not a definition and it's just too arbitrary. So.
All right, fair enough. We will carry on to the next question there. Hopefully, if you want to jump in there first, Amender. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did say you could have a chance. Let's keep on this one then. You guys aren't in a hurry beyond Jake, so I do want to try to push along. But go ahead there first, Amender. We'll try to just keep steamrolling.
Yeah, so this is exactly what gender is. Usually, people who are cisgendered actually have a hard time recognizing an internal sense of how it could be incongruent with primary sex characteristics such as penis or vagina. But the best way that I can describe gender does come down to an internal sense of how you feel your sex is. A good example of this, if for a cisgendered person, would be you as a boy are going through puberty and then for whatever reason possess gynecomastia, a condition which causes you to grow breasts. Everything in your teenage boy body would tell you that this isn't right. Something internal doesn't match with how your body is on the outside. That feeling. So I'm glad that there is someone in the audience that recognizes this. I appreciate that.
So gender is just a feeling?
Yes.
Just a feeling?
Yes.
So
I've already addressed the qualia
anybody
concern.
can be anything at any time.
No.
I mean, this is why your argument.
It's
always
just the
falls
difference
off.
between gender and sex.
You can't actually present empirical evidence.
Sex doesn't.
All the studies you
did. I provided empirical
all
evidence.
Of the empirical evidence, but it actually doesn't matter because it always just comes down to a feeling, and this is what it ultimately boils
That's
down
wrong.
to. It just comes down to a feeling for you.
In order to, is PTSD real or any of these other things that require personal?
Affirm somebody's delusional feeling?
We're just repeating the same stupid nonsense.
Delusional feeling.
Totally
so that's
ignorant.
What it just comes down to.
All
This is why you just keep on getting destroyed over and over and over again, First Amender, is because it all comes down to a feeling, and you're trying to intellectualize something that is unbelievably simple.
You guys are all in Mortal Kombat mode right now, all in destruction mode. Let's get back into the super chats. Let's see if we can destroy a few of these. Josh Brooks, this is $20 super chat, so I do want to give it some attention. I believe I'm female. I just had a baby and I bled out of my butt for 5 days. Well, I said I want to give it some attention, but boy,
Lots to unpack there.
Yeah. Oh shit. I don't know. Maybe
First
they have to
Amender
unpack
probably
it.
affirm that.
You behave. All right. Jeez. All right. Because I'm female. Do you believe me? if not, you're a misogynist bigot. I don't make the rules. They paid $20 for this one. All right, I can't knock that. I mean, thanks for your support for the channel.
I mean,
but
if you actually feel it, go see a psychologist.
I don't
There.
know.
And I could respond to that.
Hot take.
Sure thing. I was gonna say I don't know what we can unpack from that one. There, it's
Sure.
interesting. I believe I'm a
I-
female. I just had a
Go to a
baby blood on my
doctor.
butt for 5 days. You know, because I'm a female. Do you believe me? If not, you're a misogynist bigot. I don't make the rules. Go ahead there, Amy.
I would
help us out
push
here.
back there because at least from the definitions that we were putting forward, female is a biological term. And so that would be a time to use chromosomes, gonads. We've been talking about, cases in which that's not the case, but I'm being very specific on terminology here because if you had said woman, then I would be offering a different opinion. But I can actually sit here and say, from what we have been defining, no, you're not.
All right.
First Amender or anyone else?
If anybody else has any thoughts, or if we could just move on, I think.
I mean, I addressed it already. I mean, like if you're bleeding out of your anus, go see a doctor.
Okay. All righty.
You should take your own advice, First Amender.
Oh my goodness! All right.
I would go to the toilet and vomit with all the shit you're spewing.
Oh man, you can take it, you can give it. That's great. You guys are a lot of fun. Smash that like button if you're having fun on the live chat as well. Like I say, these guys know how to dish it out. It's it's been interesting to say the least. Emperor Fat Ass Dogs says Emperor Trump. President Trump, executive order. And now, see, I'm going to get in trouble now in the live chat. President Trump signed an executive order, not an emperor order, last January, proclaiming there are 2 genders. So, therefore, that debunks everything the yes people are arguing.
What was the question? What? I totally blanked on that. What the hell was
Yeah,
that?
well,
More time? Or what was it?
I had a bit of a silly internal error there. Let me just scroll back up here.
I can
I'm gonna
respond
put-
to that as well. It was in essence saying Trump has declared there's only 2 sexes. So
Here
there.
it is. Yeah.
I actually don't think that Donald Trump, again, this is my personal feelings, just to put that, I don't think he cares that much about the LGBTQ either direction. I've seen him held signs that say Trump for or LGBTQ for Trump and all these things. And I think he's more just doing what I think some of his people and his admin want. People like Stephen Miller care way more about transgenders in the military than Donald J. Trump. That is my personal feelings. And so I think that this is, again, to use something with the trans military. This is just a political football. It's something that is going to be thrown back and forth. I think it will be easily undone in a different administration. That doesn't mean the subject will be done because maybe the administration after that will then undo that. And so I don't think a president can quite declare that. However, it is another move in the chess piece that is politics.
All right, thoughts on the other side on those moves as Amy has framed them by Donald Trump.
I actually kind of agree. I think that he's largely pragmatic and he's had a mandate to do what the American people want him to do. And from what I can tell, the American people are not for this. So he's doing what he was put in office to do.
I agree.
All right, let's carry on here. Let's see. I'm going to bring up this one from Cole Marshall. One thing I thought about during the debate, though, just because of, I thought I'd hosted you before, and I was like, oh, I think all of a sudden maybe Hake would take some concern with that. Is that you said if people are suffering from mental issues that they shouldn't have guns. I think that might stir a few people up in our live audience because it doesn't sound very pro Second Amendment. But I'm just picking a little bit while I bring up the live chat there. I didn't know if you wanted to clarify, but I had that thought when we were talking about the trans and military and stuff like that. Anyway, we'll see what the audience thinks. I'll put up a poll in a little bit about where they feel we're at right now. maybe maybe we can visit that if somebody has a question about that down the road. Cole Marshall asks, how many times were the brains scanned? Could they not change through time? How would the brains have looked if we flooded them with testosterone instead of estrogen? Appeal to
Mhm.
authority fallacy.
Co-founding variables were considered, but it does require actually reading the paper to go through it. But yes, those factors were considered. And secondly, an appeal to authority is regarding a if it's just an authority that is not relevant to the field of study. In order to say have a logical argument regarding say neurobiology, but you're not a neurobiologist, it would behoove you to read what neurobiological papers say. And you simply pointing out neurobiological papers is a non fallacious appeal to authority.
Any thoughts on the other side? Nope.
Not really.
Not
I think
feeling
we debunked this many times over the course of the debate. So
A1. And don't mind me earlier there, Jake. I was just pulling up the super chats and I was just thinking about that. I was like, I don't know.
that's all right.
Yeah, I got to be
You're
a part of
entitled
things
to an
too.
opinion as well.
Yeah, I thought maybe you wanted to clarify that thought there, just if anybody may get the wrong idea. But I think he's just standing by it. Got to respect that. Let's transition over here to Hall Long Nate says, dude,
No
please.
pun intended.
Please affirm my lord Jake's identity so he feels mentally stable and socially accepted. This could be life or death.
First Amender.
No one has harmed you if I do not call you Lord, but we have decades of evidence showing real harm that if we do not affirm trans people's identities, that's the difference. This isn't a
Based
joke
on
for
a
them.
feeling.
It is life or death. Yes, it is
You know what
qualia.
the best part of this whole entire debate, which I just absolutely love,
Just
and
stop wasting
I
my
just
time.
I love
Go to
to
the
no
next
end. The
question
best part of
instead
this
of the
whole debate
same
is
fucking
that
dumb
First
talking
Amender
point.
gets so triggered about me being a
I'm not
lord
triggered
that
at all.
whole
You're the one
argument,
freaking out.
the Lord argument actually destroys your entire point of view, which is just unbelievably satisfying. I could literally chew on this for days. It's so satisfying to me
I know it.
that my
You
Lord
can
argument
chew on it
destroys your whole worldview.
for days, but I've already addressed your issue, and you've not addressed me back. But okay,
All right,
You haven't addressed me as my Lord.
for the fun
that's
of it.
correct
For the fun
because
of it,
you're making it a joke.
I will.
It's
It's
my
not a
preference,
joke
though,
for
bro.
them.
It's my preference. It's not a joke for me.
I will update your name
Vegan.
there, Jake, on the screen
Yeah,
to
to Lord
reflect
Jake, thank you.
what our live chatter would prefer there and what
Thank
you've
you.
asked for yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I do think that when you say that, you might be arguing for yes. Maybe a little bbit there.
No, I'm arguing for logical consistency is what I'm arguing for.
All right. Well, I've got that updated for you there. We want to have fun as well at modern day debate, but we do want to, like I say, take these questions seriously as well. There are serious issues surrounding some of these topics for sure. But we also want to be human as well and try to have fun, not get caught up on certain things. Let's just carry on. Chief Dylan, you see that on screen right now. Is it logically possible to identify as multiple genders throughout one's life? If so, what is the threshold to be able to tell if it is genuine or disingenuous? Yeah, did you want to start?
Sure, I could respond to that.
Sure thing.
I think that it could be very complicated to really talk about multiple genders. You could say maybe I feel more towards one or more towards the other. I know that, there are people that view themselves as non-binary or somewhere in between. I am open to listening to how people interpret their feelings, their brain states, who they are. But I would say that the move towards especially these two buckets, like trans man and trans woman, is to fit into Western society's current view of these two. And so having multiple, I would actually say, complicates things. I mean, I'm open to your interpretation or a reason for why, but I would say that instead of making it easier, it just makes things more complicated. Open being wrong, but Kitty, First Amender, do you have
See,
any?
she's not dead. Yeah, I
I
mean,
didn't say she was
typically,
dead. I said that she was lost
typically-
briefly, and we went and found her.
typically what we do.
It was heartwarming.
Typically, what we do is you talk to a psychologist, and it actually requires a specific psychologist that is specifically trained in diagnosing gender dysphoria or being transgender. And specifically with gender dysphoria, there is a specific criteria that is found in the DSM-5. And a lot of the times, like literally like 90% of the cases among adolescents, it's just a social transition. It's actually not necessary to go on hormone blockers because the situation is not that serious. But the minority of cases do exist. And so that's mostly the area of contention that people have, but the medical institutions agree.
Yeah. So once again, this all just comes back to preferences, though, because all of those things aside, it just matters what somebody says they are. And if somebody says that they are a man or a woman, then that's the only thing that really matters. So unfortunately, you can use all the sophistry you'd like and all the medical jargon and papers
Is
you'd like. but your
PTSD
argument always-
sophistry, Jake?
your argument always falls
How do
back
you figure
to
out
the
someone has
preferences.
PTSD,
You're right.
Jake?
You always, well,
You
this actually
ask
probably would
them,
be
Jake.
Yep. So this
That's what
actually
you
would be-
do, but we
No, no,
don't
you'd
not
get a
affirm
medical-
someone's
you'd get a medical
PTSD. They
diagnosis.
get a psychological diagnosis, and you ask
Exactly.
them how they feel.
All right,
That
let's let
doesn't
Taylor in.
make it invalid.
I can see
actually
Taylor's trying to
right.
jump on in,
No
guys. So let's let Taylor in. to
Why
have
do
some
you
thoughts.
keep referencing like sending them to a psychologist, saying like, oh, they think they're multiple genders, send them to a psychologist, when you've already conceded that if someone just says they are, we have to affirm it? Like, why do you keep saying that? You've already
Because
said
I don't know
that
what they're
you
going
don't
through.
need it. So
you're
why?
I
Why-
don't know what they're going through.
So would you affirm an identity without a psychological?
Why do you affirm
diagnosis or
somebody
not?
who says that they're having a heart attack that you dial 911? Obviously, you
heart
would
attack
just
is not-
Answer a question
assume
first,
that they're
Amanda.
Right,
actually
yes.
saying that. Yes.
Answer a question
Yes,
first,
you
Amanda.
would.
Such
Is
an
that your answer?
idiotic position. I'm astonished
I'm
at how you guys can walk around and just pretend. How do you pay taxes? How do you pay bills and have this low of an argument? It's so ridiculous. I don't know
Are
what
you
else
gonna
to tell
answer the
you.
question?
Yeah, answer the question first, Amanda.
What is the question?
And
Go-
then I
go
can
ahead.
answer after.
Would you affirm an identity of multiple, whatever the question was, multiple genders, without sending them to a psychologist?
I would affirm them because I don't know what they're going
There
through, and
you
I've
go.
already
There it is,
answered
first
that.
Amanda. You lose again.
Yeah. Would you
100% of the
affirm
time.
somebody if
You
somebody
lose.
said, shut up? Would you affirm somebody
lose
if
once
they
again,
had
First
a
Amanda.
heart attack? You would assume that they're having a heart attack, but you're kind of taking their word for it. That's the same concept. This is so
I tell
dumb.
them to go. I
What a
actually do the
dumb
same thing I would do
argument.
with I tell them to go get
Your
medical help, and if
arguments
they were
are
having a heart
dumb.
attack, then we would
They
sort
are
that out.
dumb.
Just like somebody
The
says,
entire
I-
medical consensus is against you. You are dumb.
the entire logical consensus is against you, unfortunately.
That is
First Amanda.
wrong. If you
Yeah.
think that all of the endocrinologists, all of the psychologists, all of the embryologists, all of the neurologists, all of the biologists are lying to you, you're just dumb.
No, I think that your point is just retarded, unfortunately, and everybody can
Okay,
actually
good
see
talk.
this. And this is why you just lose these debates so miserably, because it actually just comes down to a preference. So
No,
none of
because
that actually
all
matters. You
anybody
can
ever
say
talks about
endocrinologist
is
and psychologist
ridiculous
and
rhetoric
biologist. You
instead
can
actual
you can say all of the
evidence.
idiots
In
the
fact,
world.
no
You can say
amount
all
of
doctors
empirical
agree with
evidence
you.
will ever change your mind.
You can
the
say every
evidence of
single
that?
ist that you
I
can possibly
provided the
imagine
evidence.
First
You
Amendment, but
didn't
at the end of the
listen.
day,
In fact, you don't even
just come
care
down to
what
What's the
preferences. It's
evidence
all
that
studies there
every
are.
subjective
It's
every
preferences.
complete
doctor agrees with you?
nonsense.
What's your evidence that all doctors, all
Yes, I
endocrinologists,
provided
all-
neurobiological
every single
findings.
one in the world? You can't just say things.
Well, a majority of doctors agree with me.
I don't
yes,
think that's true.
that is 1,000% true.
Let's ask the
Your
next question.
logic still doesn't.
You have no idea what you're talking
Oh,
about.
hold on,
I
hold
just
on.
wanna
All
add
right,
on-
so they don't have no idea what his logic fails. All right, let's carry on with the next question. We got lots of questions.
Can I just
I got
add
the
in
last one here,
real-
and then I've got to get out of here, Ryan. Got to go to
okay.
Woodlawn Park.
No worries.
Splish,
I'm
splash.
so sorry, Taylor. You'll have to hold down the
worries.
fort. We'll be counting on you for that. So I'm gonna ask this question, if you don't mind, Lord Jake, and then I will
Thank
ask
you.
I'm gonna comb through after I ask this question to make sure we aren't missing any just for you. Okay, if someone identifies as an MAP, should that be socially acceptable or shouldn't have a certain boundaries? Because that's where this is ultimately going.
Yeah, well, according to First Amender, he would probably say that that's just fine if somebody's a minor attracted person because, that's just their preference. And there's nothing really that separates their preference from his in terms of like a moral hierarchy. It's all just down to people's personal choices. But yeah, I would say that that's objectively a wrong thing to do.
Now, we need
there's
to
no
change your
situation in
name
which that's
from Jake
okay.
Rattlesnake to Jake Rattlebrain.
All right, this one is for Jake.
Crickets.
Cindy Boundberry says, "Yes, Jake, let's ignore all the studies in a debate about psychology." So they're
Yeah.
making a criticism that, well, how can you make a criticism about psychology and not pay attention to the studies? I think it's a
Yeah,
fair
I mean, the
criticism.
reason it's actually very simple,
if
and
true.
people with sort of two brain cells to rub together will actually understand this. If everything that you say ultimately reduces to your own subjective preferences and how you feel about something, then none of the studies that you bring up matter. We can instantly disqualify them.
Like
But that's different for
PTSD, right?
that's different to a heart attack, because a heart attack we can have.
What
and
about
there's actually, we actually
PTSD?
that kills people, right? And we know when somebody's having a heart attack.
Yeah, you ask somebody how they feel in terms of PTSD, but you do not
Yep. And if
assume that
somebody
they
said
know
they have
nothing. You to have
PTSD
them
and they
talk
went
to a
doctor,
psychologist to confirm whether or not they need care for their PTSD. And I love
Sure.
that I talked to the other person, Taylor, who literally denied all of psychology because it is a social science. It's complete nonsense.
Yeah, she's right to do that.
That's idiotic. You wouldn't sit there and say that a placebo effect is fake, and you probably wouldn't also say somebody with PTSD isn't real because we have to ask them.
All right.
That would be
Is it possible?
idiotic.
I have to
Is it
cut you off
possible that the placebo
there.
Okay,
effect is
Jake
just a theory and that
Rattlebrain,
could be
moving
disproven?
on.
Well,
Oh, you're scared of the response again.
so
No, I just see that little rattler going off in that little brain of yours
So
as I'm
I
trying to
do-
help you
hold
out.
on.
You actually have
hold on.
you actually
I'm
have
trying
an
to help
unbelievably
you out
small
there.
head. I will say that. You have a little peon of a head.
I'm trying to help you out here,
What?
Jake, and move through these so you can move along. But
All right, last one. Then I gotta go, guys. Then I seriously gotta go.
you're dedicated.
Yeah.
You guys are dedicated to go.
Don't
to each
get
other,
don't get
so-
water in that hollow head of yours.
Oh my.
Really, the banter is quite low tier there, I will say. But anyways,
Yeah, I don't know. You've done better, I think, First Amender. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
smiling, but
I think he chokes up a bit when I'm around. He
No,
gets a
I
bit
just
nervous.
this guy is so obviously not in good faith, and any amount, like he literally said it himself. No amount of study is ever going to change his mind. He said that to you directly. That in itself should tacitly be a defeater. I think anybody who's even minorly serious about debate would know that he is incorrect here.
All right,
No,
to be
I
fair,
think that anybody who has a mild grasp of logic would know that your logic falls apart instantly. So
right,
you can
so-
try that all you want, First Amendment, but it's just not going to work. I know you get a little bit nervous when I'm around. That's why your jokes aren't very good, but it's okay. I understand.
It's okay.
Can I add in just one quick point?
Sure thing, but I do have another one for Jake. That's just like a fan chat because he does have to go. But if you want to engage with Jake right quick, if he's got time, it's gotta be pithy.
You can go to Jake first. I have mine written down.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Hall Long Nate says the fact First Amendment refuses to use the pronoun Jake has requested for months shows his intentional refusal to be consistent with his worldview. I will have to say, Hall Long Nate, you said the pronoun Jake, not pronoun Lord Jake. I think I think you've messed up here. No, I'm just picking. I do want to give you 1 minute before you go. I did want to read that out just because it's fun. I want to give you a minute to give a summarization of your thoughts before you carry on out. So I'm going to put your super chat on screen there. Haul along, Nate. I'm trying to get everybody's on there. So if you have a question, I'm trying to get them on screen. It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
We've had a lot of fun tonight. Lots of fiery back and forth. Lord Jake, 1 minute on the floor, and then we'll bid you adieu.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at the very least, Amy is consistent with her view. I think Amy's saying that if we should affirm these identities because it makes people happy and people won't want to hurt themselves. And then I think that it's apt to call me my lord, which you did, Amy, And so I can at least respect that. At least you're consistent. First Amender, however, is only doing it on one side. First Amender won't call me my lord because he's saying that it's a delusion and that I'm not a lord and it doesn't affect me. I'm saying it does. And this is why it's such a defeater for him, because I am telling you that it does. That is the feeling. So if you ask me how I feel about it, which is exactly how you're talking about with trans people, you're saying you ask them how they feel about it. That's how you ascertain whether or not it's true. If you ask me how I feel about it, I'm telling you that it affects me negatively, but you won't call me my lord. And that's why it's such a defeater for you, First Amender. Even though you think it's ridiculous, it's actually not, and it actually defeats your entire worldview. Another standard that he used was psychological assessment. He also said that it wouldn't matter if there was a psychological assessment. He would still affirm it, meaning that it only comes down to feelings. And then that actually destroys everything else that you said. None of that matters. None of the studies that you said matters because it comes down to feelings and personal assessment. That's another defeat of your argument. You also said that in order for you to affirm my identity as a lord, and in order for you to affirm that it affects me negatively, then I would have to be engaging currently in some sort of active self-harm. Firstly, I find that vile. And secondly, you wouldn't hold that same standard for trans people. So another defeat of your argument. Thank you guys for the debate. I really appreciate it. Taylor, I thought you were great as well. And with that, I'm going to sign out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to switch on over to our other screen here. Big round of virtual applause for Jake for coming out and having the discussion. Hopefully in the live chat, you feel Jake has represented you well on the side of no. I'm going to get another poll in the live chat, and I'll let you know where that is right quick, just before you jet out there, Jake. We have a poll, and I'm just going to pull it up. And I'll let you know where we're sitting so you can kind of take that home with you. It's kind of like a little to go. Let's see here. So should we affirm trans identities? So right now in the audience, we have 10%. So the lowest of the poll says they're pulling the Peterson. So they plead the Peterson. They say, oh, what does we mean? Then we have 11% say yes, we should affirm trans identities. And then 79%, just flicked to 78. People must have liked that Peterson impression. 78% say no, we should not affirm trans identities. So thank you so much, Lord Jake, for being here. We will catch you next time. Enjoy the water slides. And
all right, I'll see you Thursday for badminton and live milkshakes. First Amender, see you later.
I think if you if you plug up your ears with some ear plugs, you could probably float around in the water with that hollow head of his.
All righty.
Well, he's already gone, so you can't razz him right now. Thank you.
How did we go, guys?
Would you mind? I just want to make
winner, chicken
one
dinner?
point that had nothing to do with Jake.
You wrote yours down. Absolutely. Let's hear what you have.
So, and for example,
winner, chicken dinner, I say, guys. All right. Of course, First Amender has a cat. Jake's title lord is just factual the way he rules you in these debates. First Amender, once again, denying reality for opponents. And then Pekeko says cash pot for the winner. Now, guys, I need to go because I've got breakfast been ordered for me, and then I need to run to go to Waterbomb Park. Obviously, going to do some water slides today with the little cousins. If you follow me on Instagram, Jake Rattle SNK, you can probably follow my travels at the water park today. It's going to be a lot of fun. What do we think, guys? Was it a resounding W again? Didn't quite trigger as much as I would have liked, but it is what it is. It is what it is, you know? All right. Take care, guys. I'm going to get out of here, and I'll see you in the very near future.